Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago family. We are starting a new series here on UNC USA called Medical Matters, and I have Ms. Fazia Khan, who is a nurse, and she's based in Canada, and she's going to be discussing with us a few things. We had some interest in trying to recruit as much of our people overseas in assisting TNT in improving our health sector. And Fazia had spent some time, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Fazia, uh, in Trinidad with our healthcare system. I
Correct.
guess was at West Shore.
Yeah.
And we just want to welcome Fazia to the program. Welcome, Fazia.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I wasn't sure earlier, but I had fallen off because of some family issues. But I'm happy to be back and happy to contribute to whatever I can to this discussion. Hopefully, we can get some good out of this, and hopefully, get some help with our healthcare system and in revamping our entire healthcare system going forward with this new government that we have. And hopefully, we can go through with that. Um, did you want me to start now, Gary?
Yes, yes, you go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to just briefly talk about the manifesto that you sent me from Sumant. I briefly had a chance to look at it, and I really think you did an amazing job on that Sumant. It went through pretty much everything that I see that we use pretty much up here in Canada in
You
terms
know
of
what? The Honorable PM did send me an email to say thank you for this excellent presentations because she got it as well.
it
Yeah,
was really well, like it was really well done and thorough. I mean, you didn't have details, but I mean, the gist of what you did was pretty much what the healthcare system should be built on, pretty much. You know,
yes, yes.
the what you mentioned, certain points. I just had a little quick note about certain points um, that we focus a lot here, like in a first world country, I want to say. But I think we have to remember that we in Trinidad are still a developing third world country. So
Yeah,
for us to want to have a first world system in healthcare, like there's so much that has to be done from the ground up, you know. And I just want to reflect on what the PNM said that when they were in power, that we have the best healthcare system in the world, and I have to really laugh at that because it's entirely not true. Like I have worked in our healthcare system briefly though in Trinidad a few years ago, just in the middle of COVID time. And compared to my 20 years plus working in Canada, like our healthcare system back home just needs a complete revamping of everything, just from the bottom up. And a lot of things that you mentioned in your manifesto that was so well done. So, man, I have to say again, well, you mentioned the cradle to grave concept, right? And
yes, yes, yes,
that
yes.
is the one of the most important things that we need in a healthcare system for it to be a
It-
comprehensive
it-
system, for it to cover literally from the cradle to the grave, and that concept is not something new. It just has not been done in Trinidad, right? And
Correct. The whole health promotion and disease prevention,
correct.
diagnostics, CDAP management, all get towards patient's outcome. And this
Yeah,
government speaks so much about people-centered healthcare. People-centered
yeah.
focuses on people-centered. So
That's what it should be.
um, the honorable Dr. Bodo, he's my classmate. We studied
Mhm.
together home by me every when we were kids for like 15 years. We studied at kids and in high school together and so on. He told me he wanted something with a certain outcome, like a health policy
Mhm.
must include, he told me, include three P's. The policy is P cubed plus G. So I said, what is that? So I said, I came up with my own thing and he said, this is exactly what I needed. The physical health policy is equal to the physical infrastructure plus the personnel, which is the HR, plus the policy, Plus, it has to be people-centered, and you tie in all of that into good governance. And that is what you have to expand now on each of these. You get more like a comprehensive health policy. So but let's imagine you have the best policy and you don't have proper infrastructure, health infrastructure, that is, the labs,
It won't work.
the laundry, the nutrition, diet, the dietetics, the
Yeah,
rooms and so on. Oh, it makes no sense if you don't have
correct,
these
correct. Yeah,
wasteful things. Then you
yeah,
have to have these things equipped with the right type of people, the personnel,
yes.
the nurses, and what have you. So all these things
Correct.
come into play.
No, I agree with you 100%. If we have one part of the puzzle, the rest won't fit if we don't have the correct parts to fit
Correct. It
it.
has to be a well-oiled, with correct systems in place, procedures, protocols, how you do get things done. I mean, I have been to the hospital over in Miami, Mount Sinai Hospital. I did some project with them, and I was very impressed. It was part of my AI training in healthcare.
Right.
And in my history, my personal history, my neurologist told me that when you get a report, a radiological report, they allow the computer, the AI to read what should I say, the report firstly from the radiologist, and then the specialist comes and just quantify or justify what is being said. And the head of neurology is telling me that 2 years ago, it was like about 70 to 80% accurate. And he said up to this year in January, when I was there, he said it has gone up to 92% accuracy level. So he just like it's rubber stamp what is being diagnosed with the AI and goes along like that. So instead of seeing 30 patients for the day, he can see like pretty close to 100. Because his productivity has increased, his
Correct.
efficiency has increased.
Correct.
All because of AI. But that is another story. But we are heading there. And in fact, Dr. Bodo told me they already got a machine to diagnose breast cancer with the algorithms and what have you. So it's like a scanning they're doing, and I don't know if it's implemented as yet, but they got the machine.
That's actually really good news to hear that I actually gotten that already. Now we
I
have
think early discovery is an urgent matter in fast cancer. The earlier you discover this thing, is the better, more effective the
the
treatment can
better
be,
you can
right?
treat it. Yes, correct. The
Because
better
you don't want this thing to get
But
out of hand. Yeah.
But Gary, the funny thing is they got it in the 40th of the PNM administration, and it's still not into effect at this point in time. Because my cousin is a leading cancer specialist in the country, is Dr. Danesar, and he's about to retire. He's retired now, actually.
Right.
And he was saying nobody is there to run the thing, to run the diagnostic.
Well, we know that they were completely incompetent in running anything, right? Look what they brought the country to with every aspect of it. But go ahead.
That is exactly my forte. I mean, I just graduated in AI, artificial intelligence, and I have the healthcare background as well. Having done my part of my training, it was in AI and healthcare. So, but then again, I see they had advertised 20,000 jobs 2 weeks ago.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw
And
that.
not one of them are in AI or data science or anything like that. The Honorable Prime Minister did a walkthrough last week, Thursday, and I was listening to her. And in each ministry, the most important job was the first job, the lowest paid job is called BOA, Business Operations Assistant 1. Basically, it's a typist, a clerk typist who does like filing and photocopying and this and that. The lowest of the low end job. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But that is the most sought after job. Most sought after job, she's saying, when they tabulated, because there was 120,000 applications in 4 days time. In 4 days time, online. That's what they do
Wow.
online.
For that particular entry level job.
For the entire 20,000
Well,
jobs.
Okay.
you have to understand that, Suman, it may not be what you're looking for, but you understand that the Prime Minister is trying to meet the needs of the people
Oh
who
yeah,
needs to be employed. I'm
that's a
sure
great
that we're going to
That's a
get to
great
that. We're going to get to that point. I mean, and as much as the thing that we want to see the level of medical services and delivery in Trinidad is going to take some work.
Yeah.
It's going to take some serious funding, and I mean, to know that the financial situation that the PNM has placed us in, what we want to accomplish,
Yes.
may take a little bit longer than we
Might
want to
take
see.
us longer. Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
that's because of the damages that they did to our treasury.
Yes.
So we might be a little bit delayed in where we want to be at, and where we need to be at also. Because I mean, we have discussed that at length here with Dr. Ramrup on the emergency response services with the ambulance. I mean, we all know we don't have that kind of service where you get efficient service. I mean, the communication, the equipment, the people trained to assist, in that response. First of all, the timely response, and then they're not properly trained. So this is something that and the bus is not properly equipped to service you in your dying needs.
Yeah.
And that's why we have so many dead people, because we lack the capability of having trained people being equipped to respond effectively, and to have the system in place to communicate with the emergency room that I'm bringing him so and so. This is their condition, and relate it, like how we have it here in Canada and the US, etc. And these are the things that we want to see get done in Trinidad. Would make us feel much more comfortable to the fact that that it will be easier for us to think about going back home.
Yeah, that would give you a peace of mind, because so Gary, that goes back to what Sumant was saying. We can have the new hospitals open up, we can have the equipment, but we don't have the transport to bring them from Beach, to Mount Hope within an hour. Then what is the purpose, right?
Yeah, and we need hospitals there also within that vicinity.
You know what? One just basic thing, like for that area of Beach to Sangre Grande to Rio Claro, is 15 miles on each side from Beach to Rio Claro, Beach to Sangre Grande. There is no emergency services in Beach. There is no fire services in Beach. So if something happens to someone in Beach, and I've seen it many times, we have to wait minimum 45 minutes to find a truck or ambulance to get to Beach from either Sangre Grande or Rio
If
Claro.
it gets
By
there.
that time, if there's one to get there, and by that time, well, guess what? We don't need it anymore, because the person has passed away or a family member took them. That's how long it takes ambulance to get to Beach. At least 45 minutes if there's one ready to come on time. And if not, it's
from Rio Claro, you said
about
45
15
minutes.
Yeah. It's a 15-mile drive, but the road is so curvy and broken and potholed and single lane. It takes you that long to get there.
Right.
And, I mean, 15 miles should take you, maybe 15-20 minutes on a good road. It takes about 45 minutes. So the road is so broken and terrible that you cannot drive in more than 50 or 60 miles an hour on that road.
No, that is if you're driving, but if you have to wait for an ambulance, then
and this is the thing, right? Like for a population there, I mean, there's at least, I think, in Beach, Charuma, Navis, surrounding areas, at least 20,000-30,000 people minimum, right? And we don't have an ambulance service there. We don't have a fire single truck there. So people just die because we don't have service, and that is a big issue for me, coming from Beach, because I've lived in the country. I've seen the services, what the lack thereof, right? My grandparents grew up in Beach. My parents, I grew up there. And in those 40, 50, 60 years that they've been there, 90 years my grandma lived to, we never had any of those services there, right? We have one little health center in Beach, right? Limited hours, right? They open 8 to 4, on the weekends 10 to 2. So people shouldn't get sick after hours then. Like, what do you do, right? Like, I mean, they need to first of all expand the hours. I think, like I said, hire more of the staff we need, expand the hours, and then expand the services, one step at a time. But I've lived in my whole life, nothing improved. It's the same thing, right? And I'm hoping, with the government that we have now, that, and with the help of, with our group and our team, that things, improve for the better for the people, especially in rural areas, because they need assistance too. They need the healthcare more than, in another sense, more than, but it's more acutely needed there because we don't have the services to depend on if somebody gets ill or, there's a fire in the house and there's no one to take you anywhere, right?
Well, I think it's a matter
Yeah.
of life or death, which it is, and we have
It
lost so
is.
many lives because of the
Mm,
lack of services. And the PNM went about squandering
they
our treasury
did.
and not thinking and mama guying a few people here and there just to get enough votes to get themselves in. And I mean, these are the real focus things that that you need to focus on that has not been delivered. And I see with the level of educated people in our country, they have done more to frustrate those who have the intelligence and people like yourself who
Exactly.
have studied overseas and can assist.
This is the thing,
Yeah.
Gary, you know, it doesn't pay to study. That's what it
Mm.
boils down to. Because it's always friends and family who gets the job, they get the promotion, and you are just lingering there,
Then
you
you hit
know.
the nail on the
On,
head there, Sumant. You hit the nail on the head.
yeah, yeah. Because
I
I've been through
personally
this 40
experienced that
years.
at West Shore.
40
Personally experienced.
years.
Wow.
I've been in this thing 40 years. I'm fully aware what goes on and how it is. I've gone through 4 changes of government, and I see the same pattern that
Same
happened
thing.
in 1986, the same pattern happened in 1995, the same pattern happened in 2010, and this is the same pattern happening this time around. So 4 times. I mean, how long does it take us to learn something? 4 times we have to
Correct.
make the same
Correct.
mistakes.
Yeah. You see, the thing is, though, it's such a big shift in your mindset. Like you said, we need to fire all the people who are there and replace them with people who are brand new to the system, who come from it with a different set of eyes, and to try to end this nepotism nonsense because it wouldn't get us anywhere than where we are right now, right? If
But
I,
they tried that. They tried that when they brought in the 2 cops, an assistant commissioner from Canada,
yes, yes.
Iwatsky, and the same. And within 6 months, they had to return. There was so much pressure and pushback
See,
from the
this is
local
what has to
boss.
stop. That nonsense has to stop. That has to end. And I
This
don't
is
know
the
how we
thing.
do, but that has to end because we will never be able to upgrade this country to where it should be if these things continue to happen. You know,
And that is despite we having a good workforce, man. I mean, you have to
That
give
is the
people.
recipe also that is for the catastrophe that we face in even with the oil industry or every industry in our
mhm.
country. You hired based on party and race and
And friends,
whatever
and friends and
affiliation,
family.
and
Yeah.
not people who were competent to do the job. And it didn't matter if the job get done because you had no real how to say. When you try to complain about something, you had no real recourse on it. I
Yeah.
mean, you couldn't get anything done.
There was no accountability,
Your
and there's
complaints went
still no
nowhere.
accountability. Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely the administrative part of things. I mean, we know we are just about 6 months into government now, and it will take a little time. But I know we have to stay at it here by raising the issues, raising the consciousness of what needs to be done. And that's why I try to encourage here that we need to really keep the issues alive, and pinpoint where the issues are. Like how Fazia is saying with beach situation, we know I always reiterated about my arrow getting ambulance service and medical facilities, and the ambulance, the fire tenders that need there, and the people trained. We have a proposed idea and suggestion that all of us, especially with Dr. Rambo here, in that I saw here in the U.S. It is also in tandem with the paid services, we have volunteers and we encourage that volunteerism. So you have people within the local community are trained to
Mhm.
assist until the professional help has arrived. So within you know that they can do some kind of a first aid or something to assist the situation, and until so you might be a teacher or I mean a policeman, and you have some skills that can assist with the first aid, and you can help until the ambulance reach. So I mean, most of the times people can't. You get shot, you get in an accident, or even regular medical health issues, and you can't assist at all. Because we're not
Gary,
trained.
no, it's true, right? I think even I mean, local police services should be able to perform any type of first aid. I think so. I'm not sure.
Well, I
Like
mean, here in the in the
that's
US,
a
they
that's
come with a
yeah,
bag. They're ready
that's
and
a
they're
standard
trained.
here, but I
Yeah.
don't know what it's like back home. But like you said,
And they
see
have
that
Narcan. They have Narcan for a personal
yeah, they
overdose. So
do. Yeah, they
yeah,
do. Yeah, we
yeah.
carry little kids. So the thing is, okay, see, that's very simple thing, right? Like in the health center, so in each little constituent, little health center, why isn't it a simple, monthly course where the local people could come and do a 8 hour or 4 hour day training in locals in CPR and first aid? Like, why can we not have classes to offer to the local people once a month, CPR and first aid? That alone could save so many lives. Like, I don't know anybody in BC who knows CPR or first aid. And it's such a basic skill to have.
Oh,
Such a basic
and
skill.
that should be something taught in the
That should
schools,
that should be
high
taught in
I mean,
schools,
school.
when I
That should be
first
Red
taught in the
Cross.
health
when I first
center.
initiated the program,
Like,
we got about uh uh for Komoto Manzana, we had about 200 people. It was a mixture of teachers and all different category of people was interested. And I mean, the PNM government never showed any interest. I mean, I've tried to the PM and the health ministry, the housing, all these people never showed any interest. I mean, we have raised these issues with our minister before he became the minister of health, and so we are looking forward to pushing forward to getting these both done, the volunteer training program and the paid training program, so that we can have people ready to respond.
yeah, that, what, I think that should be just part, like an extension of the health services in each little health center, that, like in rural areas at least, or even offered by the police services. Like, why can't that not be tied into their program somewhere or the other?
This is something we're looking forward to, down the
Yeah,
road. Yeah.
like that, and
Yeah, but
that alone in itself, could be so beneficial to areas that lack emergency services until they come.
yeah, Gary, I didn't give you one statistic that I think is important. Of the 20,000 jobs advertised last week, 7,982 was for the Ministry of Health only.
Mm, that's a 7,000.
7,982 out of the 20,000 jobs. To tell you how
That's a
understaffed,
that's a good chunk.
that is more
That's a
than
third.
1/3
Yeah, that's
of
a
all
third.
the
Yeah.
jobs advertised.
Mm-hmm.
More than 1/3 is pretty close to 40%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Percent
The
of
thing, the thing is, though,
so, and yet we have 300 to 400 doctors without jobs.
I don't understand that. How is that? How does that happen?
That were deliberately not filled under the PNM for certain ethnic reasons that I do well understand.
We don't have any doctors in Beach. We have no doctors in Beach that comes to visit Beach.
Okay,
except
there
for the
were 400 doctors who did not have jobs.
Wow. See? Yeah. See, that's the
But
thing, right? They
deliberate.
didn't work. They didn't work for the people. They work for themselves.
Suman, check your internet. You're going offline there a little bit. So yes, we did have a number of doctors. In fact, they have frustrated our nurses. As far as I know, Fazia, you might have a better idea than that, than me. Where a lot of nurses from Trinidad were seeking jobs elsewhere.
Listen, when I worked in West Shore, when I was there for the 1 year as director of nursing in West Shore, right? There were about, I mean, I don't know how many, 10, I don't know. There's probably about, I would say, average
Trying to get
50
on-
nurses who work there in West Shore, right? 5 of them in my 1 year that I was there came to me for letters of recommendation to leave the country to go to the US to work to find jobs. Number one, why? Because the pay was better, of course. Everybody wants better pay and salary, and they want compensation. 2, they didn't have to deal, with the 2-tiered system that we have in terms that we just talked about. Families being hired, friends being hired, this one getting pushed over for a job that you were qualified for. There was no job satisfaction. Their job wasn't secure. Their pay was not the best that they had, and they didn't feel valued, right, as nurses. And nurses tend to feel very devalued when they're spoken to in a way that is not conducive to professionalism, right? And I don't have to tell you guys how physicians, not everyone, but in general, treat nurses back in Trinidad.
Welcome, Dr. Ramrup. So we have Dr. Ramrup on board here. So we
Hi,
get
guys.
in. We
Hi,
get in there.
doctor.
How are you doing?
Welcome.
So
Thank
you remember this young lady, right, Dr. Ramrup?
Yeah, of course, of
I
course.
can't see him. Come on, let me see them. I can't see anybody.
Oh my God.
Gary, take me off the front page here.
You're good.
There we go.
But
How are you?
I said,
Fine,
Dr.
fine.
Dr. Ram is close by you right now. So
Yeah, I'm in Toronto.
How are you? I'm in PEI.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. Are you visiting up there, or are you doing
No, I'm actually just here with my daughters for a couple of weeks, and then I have my
Okay.
medicals and whatnot.
Nice, very good. And then you head back home?
Yeah, back home on the 9th.
Okay. Where in Toronto are you?
Close to the junction. It's a place called the Stockyard.
Stockyard.
Yeah, it's just southwest of the city.
Okay.
Maybe about 6 blocks from the castle. Yeah,
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Casaloma.
Casaloma, yes. No, we were just talking about so-called brain drain, sort of, where you were saying, Suman, that they made it so unattractive for medical staff and trained personnel to stay in the country because they're not being, valued or not being compensated for the work that they do, and for the studies that they have, and then if you don't have a valued worker, you're not going to stay in that job. You're not going to, feel good about what you do for your workplace, and a lot of staff that I worked with at West Shore, they left, they wrote the exams for the States and they left, and they're working up in the States right now. So in order to retain and to retain staff in our country, we have to compensate them, in terms of what they need. Otherwise, you wouldn't find staff going anywhere. Like, that's one of the reasons why, too, in Canada, we have lots of people in rural areas who don't have a physician. Why? Because nobody wants to work in a far rural. Everyone wants to be in the city. Everyone wants, to have most experience in a big city life. But the rural spots are where needed most. Nobody wants to go there. So you have to give incentives of some kind to keep people there and get people there, right? Like a lot of nurses like myself are traveling now to fill spots that are just not being filled by the staff locally because they don't have the manpower, they don't have the resources, and they don't have people who want to stay there because there's nothing to go there for except work, right? Like I've done critical care nursing for more than 20 years. I've done management for 6 years, so I've seen both ends of it too. And most recently, when my parents were sick and were admitted to the Sangre Grande Hospital for the first time in their lives, I saw that end of it too, and that hospital is a very busy hospital. The emergency department was chaotic, like most ER departments are. The staff were really nice there, but when we got to the wards, like, some of them had attitude, right? I mean, and that's a big part of what we do in a hospital. Like the way they treat people who come for their help, sometimes it's not very nice. How else I put it, right? And so when you talk about patient-centered care, in Canada, they sort of moved towards family-centered care now. So they're encouraging families to be more involved in the patient care, right? So before we had really strict visiting hours, especially during COVID times. Now we have open visiting, even in the ICU. Why? Because they find families recover better and faster when they have families around them, right?
Not only that, you see the thing about
Most-
they seem. I mean, in the best hospital, they still seem to be able not to be able to deliver the adequate attention for a patient. I mean, things could be going wrong in the room, and I mean, and if you have someone there, to assist, is much better than to not have somebody there. So if a relative is there, it helps with the service a little bit and makes it. I think it makes it easier for a nurse, because you're handling so many things on the floor. So if you have someone in the room, something gets pulled out, or I mean, you get the beeping noise, but you still get somebody there to help the patient. Than just being the nurse being by themselves. Even if you still lift the patient or something, you still have somebody helping.
No, but no, and what you're saying is true. However, I mean, families are
They're
not
not
assigned
allowed. Yes,
nursing
correct.
duties or medical duties. They can help with feeding the patient, or bringing something for them or dressing them. But in terms of doing a nurse's job or physician's
But not
job,
really doing the job, but kind
Mhm.
of assisting a little bit.
yeah,
Even when
they're
the nurse
there.
comes in, it makes it help.
Yeah, no, like I know what you're saying, but at the same time, though, right? They're there for the patient, not for us, right? So they're there to help them and to help them recover, and to just be someone of a friendly face and voice. Because a lot of times, especially elderly, they're really confused. They get ICU delirium. They have no clue what's happening, and a lot of patients, like we have seen, have better outcomes than their families. So now we're changing, we're more moving from a patient-centered care to family-centered care. Just involve them more as much as they can, to help with patients' recovery and progress.
That
Dr.
seems to
Rambo, if
be
you want to join
catching
in,
on.
Sumania, go ahead.
I said that seemed to be catching on as well, because when I was did some lumbar surgery last year in January, and they always had a nice pull-out couch in the room. All of a sudden, I never visualized that. Plus, I had a nice big rocking chair which you can let the sleep on as well. So,
Yeah,
like,
before
two
we never had
persons can
families in
be.
the room. Now families are staying overnight. We never had that before.
Yeah. Prior to that, they had to stay in a hotel close by the
Mhm.
hospital, but
Yeah.
now they're
Now
staying
it's
in the room itself.
yeah,
Yeah, but
it's changing
only
now.
one only one person is allowed.
To
Yeah,
stay
to stay
overnight.
overnight. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's where that sort of that's where that focus is now in terms of family-centered and patient-centered care.
Mm.
But going back to the brain drain we were talking about, Gary, I mean, Samantha was saying doesn't matter the education, jobs are being given to people who right, and people and friends and family, and then
More than people that are really skilled and trained to do the job.
correct. Then they're not qualified to, but by but by way of knowing someone, it's they say it's not what you know, it's who you know now, right? So
Yeah. Gary, did you see something in the post you had today concerning one of the PNM senators questioning about the health, the CDAP drugs and the drugs pertaining to ophthalmology? She was questioning why the current government is not doing a better job. So
I would
they
have to
were
look
there
back
10
at.
years ago, but they never thought about that question before. In fact, the CDAP drugs, most of them are so outdated and all that. They took this present regime within 2 months to get a new set of drugs. I was at the health center yesterday. I went to register because I think I'll be here for a while. And the funny thing is that there were four main drugs.
Sumati, you're somewhere
Health
your
center,
internet is
one of
is freezing. Your internet is freezing. Dr. Ramrup, you want to jump in here for a little bit? Or Sumati, you
them.
cleared up? So Dr. Ramrup, also we were
Um,
talking about, we were reiterating those things we discussed about the emergency response care that needs to be done, and both how to say, paid and unpaid people, where we train people in the community, which you would call the community resilience program. Because I mean, we are losing lives every day, This is something that we want to see executed, and we want to involve as much people to help getting that, on board, with our government here. Dr. Ramo?
Yeah, yeah. I was interested in hearing what Sumant was. Sumant, you're back on?
So, somebody back? He's frozen again.
He's frozen. I wonder what's happening. Anyway, he's probably having some issues with his internet. I find when I turn off my video, I'm getting a better connection. Although, you
Yeah,
know,
but that's because of the low data speed. So they need to
yeah,
upgrade a lot of the,
yeah.
yeah.
But what it is as Fazia was saying is that the problem is that if you put square pegs in wrong holes, in especially at the managerial level, you're not able to engage people, and if you don't have any sort of job retention type of welfare and other activities, pretty much will get frustrated when, of course, there are other options, especially younger people. So one of the problems is that I do feel that hopefully the government would try to put CEOs and key executives in managers in people who are qualified, and if they're not, because in Trinidad and Tobago we don't have quite a lot of persons who have been trained in healthcare management and related areas, for example, emergency management, and therefore I do feel that that's a possibility for people like Sumant and myself and maybe even Fazia to arrange to have quite a lot of these possible training sessions in management and AI in medicine, for example. Sumant can add quite a lot of that. As specifics of management nursing, because we have a problem in the hospital. When I was medical director, medical chief of staff, even when I was executive medical director at San Fernando, we had quite a lot of what we should say the nurses were operating in silos, a silo compared to doctors, and although we had something called the heads of department in the regional hospitals like Southwest San Fernando Hospital, Sangre Grande, you had a head of department, which usually was a consultant, a specialist medical officer like myself. I was head of department of emergency medicine for over 10 years in San Fernando casualty there. But I wasn't really head of the department. I was head of the doctors. And when we sat down and we had meetings with the nurses to see if we could integrate sort of integrated healthcare system, we had disconnect. We had sometimes partial or even total disconnect in terms of policies that were coming down from the matron and from the nursing and the general nursing, and policies that were being developed by the medical chief of staff. Because in addition to being a head of the department of medicine, I also worked as a medical director, chief of medical staff for over 4 years, and this allowed me to try to see if I could give doctors and nurses a more integrated approach to managing the wards, for example, or the departments of medicine and all the service lines. So I was doing my MBA at the time, actually. So this allowed me to try to see if I can use some of my MBA in healthcare management skills and try to bring the doctors, rather than having their own meetings with their own doctors. And when you talk about head of department, all the heads of departments in medicine in the doctors' heads of departments were doing is basically making rosters for the doctors. They were not sitting down with the nurses and other ward staff, for example, the attendants and the nursing assistants and all the other persons, the daily paid, whoever was helping with the maintenance on the ward, and they didn't really sit down and develop policies, for example, in terms of administering the ward. So we had all of this nonsense. For example, when I tried to implement persons who will be, instead of having one visiting hours in our hospitals in Trinidad, where everybody comes on the wards somewhere between 5 and 6 or 4 and 5, and you have a whole battalion of people coming in. I had suggested staggered visiting hours where people would come in based on a waiting room downstairs where they would have I don't know, some customer service representatives who would call up to the clerk on the ward, and whenever there was a vacant spot or the patient didn't have any attention being given by the doctors and nurses, they would be allowed in, and then they would be screened. So you would have a more, you'd have a more family oriented engagement with the patients. And this was much needed, in particular with younger children. I mean, we have mothers in San Fernando who can't even get to see their teenagers or their toddlers because the nurses say, well, why are we doing cleaning on the ward? We don't want anybody. So these archaic type of programs
Yeah.
is a big problem. And when I try to change it or to even alter the concept of operations or even the philosophy of modern day nursing and as it relates to medicine, doctors and saying, look, we doctors prefer to have our patients treated holistically. And your traditional nursing is saying, well, look, you don't even want the relatives or even the parents to come up, and
Welcome,
see
Dr.
the
Paru.
children.
Good
You know?
night.
So,
Yeah, Colin, I know. Sorry to get in this. I just coming from the hospital. I'm on my way home.
okay,
Join in a little while.
okay.
Okay, we'll see
See
you when
you.
you get home. Take your time.
Yeah. So, that was one of the challenges we had in terms of that. So the general manager of nursing was normally a senior nurse, that would have been aligned to any political party, whether it be a PNM party or another party, whether it be NAR or People's Partnership or NR. Most of the nurses, when the People's Partnership came in, they didn't put we didn't put people who were aligned to our party. It was the same set of nurses who are at the senior level. So one of the problems that we think that could solve that is that if we are to allow the current persons who are in these senior nursing and medical positions, even some of the daily paid, some of the the other support services, radiology and immunology, laboratory, pathology, all of these other backup services, that these two persons who are put as head of departments or senior nursing and administrative positions, that we can have some courses, some certificate courses, some of which could be done online. And some of us can assist with the online parts, and wherever there are practical on hand executive coaching type work, we can have some of us or some other consultants come in and execute the coaching on the wards or in the clinics or even in the peripheral community services. So I think that this is something that Sumant and the advisory team should really aim to do with the healthcare system, and saying, look, we don't think that you will have all the senior managerial positions properly trained or qualified, but through us or through the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and I mean I can get some of the advisory experts sort of connected with University of Trinidad and Tobago. I know the program director there. I know we know some of the board members now because, as you know, the UNC is in power, and we do have quite a lot of the board members who are aligned to the party. So we can possibly get with the minister there in terms of that UTT. Try to see if we can register some of us as what we call part-time course developers and facilitators, which I am, and we just have to submit our documents to the UTT administration, and then we have to fill out some forms and whatever, and we will get like me to run courses. I think that some of these courses could be, you will get a UTT certification and accreditation. And I think it will help in terms of moving upwards into some of these areas, because we have to look at not just the next 3 or 4 years. We have to look at creating a legacy whereby we create a cadre of qualified managerial people within the system, because we just don't have enough to go around, you know. And I think that you have 5 CEOs, that is Northwest, North Central, Eastern, Southwest, and Tobago. I think that the boards of directors, whilst the UNC is in government, they should really aim to have these five CUs, not really political, aligned persons, but rather qualified CUs who are able to manage people and have qualifications and experience in terms of facilitating and engaging, right, persons in they don't have to be health sector related, but they definitely would have to have some degree of competency in bringing healthcare teams or even any type of teams and stakeholders together, and sort of empowering them and facilitating them, and nurturing proper healthcare standards, as well as implementing the accreditation standards, implementing the patients' rights charter, and of course maybe using something like the Baldrige Healthcare Excellence Awards, right, to standardize throughout the country, right, healthcare performance indicators that can be used to benchmark performance in all the RHAs, and of course to benchmark the RHAs with international centers of excellence, like for example Kaiser Permanente and other, even even in Canada, some of the private sector institutions, healthcare institutions that have developed a high quality of healthcare, right, with excellent bottom lines compared to what we have. So these are some of my thoughts. I don't know if Samant is back on, if he could tell us about his registration
Yeah,
challenges.
I went yesterday to register the Weiswald Health Center, and I was told I took along my copy of all my medication I normally get in the US. I just went to test the system basically to see if I can get any medication. Now I get my 90-day supply in time and so on. Um, but when I went there, the attending physician, I had to go through the process. It was quick. It was very pleasant. And they said if I would like to see the doctor. I said, sure, I'd like to see the doctor. I took along my medication list, which I got from Mount Sinai, what I think. But he says, you know what, we cannot give you any medication here unless you go, for example, to your neurologist or your cardiologist and let them recommend that we need to get comparable medication here to coincide with what's being given. So I said, oh, my hypertension, I use Valsartan. Well, I know Dr. Bodo, he recommended that we get Lasartan, which is the same. Valsartan, Olisartan, Lasartan is the same trend of medication. I said, well, can I get Lasartan because I know you all don't have Valsartan. He said, yeah, but no, we cannot give that to you. You have to get a recommendation that or a letter from an attending physician to say that he is recommending these medications to you, and then we'll give you the next comparable medication if you don't have. Basically, they don't have it. They don't have any of the medication which I'm taking or which I get from Mount Sinai. So testing the system there, um, it was, there are some things which are right. I think you have to go through some testing again. But I asked, well, with my letter from Mount Sinai to see, which I have in my chart, we have the my chart there. You see all your surgeries you have done, all your medication, all the stress test results of this, blah, 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 and all the medication which have been assigned to you. Can I bring that letter and show you, or print it off my phone and give it to you? But no. You say, well, you do stress tests. I do stress tests, and because I cannot use a treadmill, I have to do it a nuclear stress test. So he said, no, you have to go to the cardiologist, and he will have to recommend these medication for you, or the equivalent type of medication for you, like as I said, the blood pressure medication as well as Valsartan. I'm sure I can get this one, which they do on the new CDAP formula now, because only one Dr. Bodo, I think they approved it last month. But they have it in the health center, by the way. They do have it at the health center because the doctor, attending doctor
So
told me.
Sumant, you would have to tell us more about those drugs because I don't understand. You know, I mean, I guess we have gotten a better quality of drugs, right? Isn't that what it
Yeah,
is?
there were about 4 or 5 new drugs with Dr. Bodo to sell. It was newer type drugs as well. But today I was hearing, it's in your chat, Gary, where Dr. You have Desiree, oh, that's a Dr. Desiree something. She's a consultant ophthalmologist, but she's a PNM senator. And she was poking question like, basically, how come you all not bringing out the best top of the line drugs for glaucoma patients? But they were there 10 years, for the past 10 years or 9.5 years. What did they do? You
Yep.
know, and you begin to see only when they're out of poverty, then they start to think that there were all these older type drugs, medications, sorry. This was
First
what
of
we
all,
were getting,
they created the chaos.
you
So
know.
and Akin, like, well, they had a memory loss.
Remember one thing is 80 million in outdated medication they ended up with.
That's
When they,
unbelievable. I cannot believe that.
80
Oh
million
my goodness. That's a lot of
outdated
money.
and 500 million, that's $500 million in unpaid bills, which the UNC have to fork out now and use that from their allocation for this year to settle those outstanding payments. You know, and what does that happen? When you take buy medication worth $500 million, I'm sure you will buy it from different suppliers and so on. What does that say about your credibility now that it's long outstanding, overdue, and all these things? What is your relationship you have? Let's say your supplier. Hey, you guys didn't pay for the past 6 months, blah, 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 blah. You begin to lose credibility, So
You
all these
see,
things.
Saman,
Because
the problem, having worked at the level of medical director, right, at Southwest, and then I worked as executive medical director. I acted as CEO a few times. And one of the problems that it sounds stupid, but it is, I just keep repeating myself. And this is what happens, right? The, the position of medical director was changed when I was changed from medical chief of staff to medical director. And that was during the PNM time, right? Because at that time, the minister, the guy who has these pharmacies, what's his name? He was
Rahel,
Rahel. Yeah, John was a good guy. He met with me. We had a conference in I think it was in Antigua, right? We had a medical conference, and he went there as the medical health, and I was doing something for UWI at the time. I was giving a lecture, and he saw me, and he met with me, and he said, they are interested in trying to change the healthcare system where medical chiefs of staff, right, are not doctors who are senior doctors who after so many years became senior doctors, and they put them there. They want to have medical doctors who have some training, right, in management of healthcare, right? And of course, at that time, I told you I was doing my MBA in healthcare management. So that is how I was appointed. I was interviewed, and I was put as medical director of San Fernando Hospital. What had happened at that time? I had to give up my private practice, right, during the hours of 8 to 4. So I had to sit down in that office from 8 to 4, right, and manage the hospital, right, using my skills as a medical, MBA trained healthcare management person. And he raised my salary. I went from like 30,000 to almost $45,000 a month, saying that, look, I know you have private practice because, as you know, senior doctors in hospital are only are allowed 28 hours of private practice. Sorry, hospital work, right? 28
Yeah,
hours per
right.
week, right? Out of a 40-hour week, we are allowed 28 hours of work, and the other 12 hours of that work week can be done in private practice, right? Plus, if you do private practice after the hours of 4, it's fine, but you shouldn't do it when you're on call, right?
Mm.
Which obviously is not happening in the country right now. So when I went in there, your partner, I'm hot and strong, I have this MBA training, so I have
Mm.
I have all this fancy metrics, I go in and say, aha, I have 50 SMOs, we call them senior medical officers, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
each one works 50 by 28 hours. So I'm
Mm.
supposed to be getting 5 weeks of 45 to the 10. I'm supposed to be getting 1,400 hours of SMO coverage, right? On a 775 bed hospital, right? Which has 775 people in the hospital, right? I need to have, right, 1,400 of specialist coverage. Now
Yeah.
we have something in Trinidad called registrars, which is senior residents that you have like in the US and Canada, where you have senior resident or PGY, I think it was 3, right? PGY 3 or PGY 1. I can't remember which one it is, but senior residents, right? And in other words, and they are SMOs as well. They act as SMOs when the SMOs go on leave, right? And I had about 50, 55 again. So you're supposed to get another 1,400 of that, right, per week. So when you really check it now, a person, if you divide 770, right? Okay, and you have 2,800 of specialist hours, it's an easy metric, right? 2,800 divided by 770 gives you the amount of specialist coverage per patient, right, per week. Yeah, simple,
Yeah.
nice indicator. So we now started to check out to the 50, and I don't know if Fazia is still here, but what it is that
Okay.
yeah, when you check now and you multiply that, at least 14, at least 35 to 40 of those doctors would come in at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 10 o'clock they're
They're
out of
gone.
the hospital.
Yeah.
And there were like 5 of those who didn't even come in. They were one of them was a university doctor. 4 of them were local doctors, and they never came in. I
Well,
tell you, Suman, these people never
listen,
came in to do a ward
doc,
round.
I had to
Yeah,
give you the joke. My wife was the same position. She was a senior registrar, but the consultant would just come and by 9 o'clock he's gone. So she had
yeah,
to fulfill the role
yeah.
of consultant to make up
Yeah.
his hours.
Yeah, and this is what we
Right?
were talking about brain drain. Because what
Oh boy.
happens now is you have a consultant, 50 consultants. And out of those 50 consultants, 35 to 40 were filling positions. And they were not giving more than 50 by, let us say, 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
That's 150 out of 1,400 hours per week
Yes.
to people in
Welcome,
hospital.
Joyce. Welcome, Joyce. Yeah.
You understand? So now this is now I'm gonna stop there with that now, because this is what we call management, right? This is what now, instead of having a medical director who comes in and just signs documents and signs everything, smiles with everybody, and then he goes to his private practice at 10 o'clock and sits down and takes calls from there, right? Rahel wanted somebody to sit down and manage the hospital. Good. And this was one of the things that he wanted to change. Of course, when Manning put Jerry Naris, he messed up the
Yes.
whole thing, and then we had to leave because Naris was a crazy man. So what happened is that the whole managerial skills comes back to the CEO. When the CEO meets, for example, and you just talked about your problem is pharmacy, right? You say, okay, the CEO meets with all his technical and clinical staff, right? And so the clinical staff goes to the medical chief of staff, right? The other staff like pharmacy, radiology, all of these, sort of subclinical, ones will go through, right? The what we call the hospital medical manager, the hospital manager, right? So the other non-clinical areas, and then of course you have the nurse manager. So what the CEO would do, he will meet with all of these different managers, right? And he will go through it. So when pharmacy comes through now, and pharmacy comes to the hospital manager, the pharmacy would have to give an account of how many medications they're using, and what they were lacking, because we started measuring performance. And when I started to ask the doctors at my heads of department meetings to start doing clinical audits, right? to find out whether or not what you were using, the medications that you were using, is it helping? Is it actually helping the people to have a quality of life when they go home, right? Physiotherapy appointments right now is like months after. So, as an orthopedic department, when you replace somebody's hip or you put in a hemiarthroplasty, because they don't do hip replacements in Trinidad because they not they don't supply the total hips, right? The doctors might have training, but they don't do it because they don't have total hips, so they use half hips. So when they send these people home, are these people just gonna go home and sit down with no therapy? Are they living? Are they having bed sores? Do they go back to do some sort of work at home? Are they going to homes where they have proper ramps for them to go up to their bathrooms? Do they have proper washrooms where they have bars to hold to sit down in their commode? What this is holistic healthcare, and this is the problem that we're having. So when you say to me that your metric is that you are replacing 15 hips per month, and that's good. I'm doing a lot of work. I'm putting back
Yep.
15 hips. I am doing my performance is excellent, Dr. Ramrup. How could you sit down there as medical director and tell me that's not good? But then I ask you the question: how many of those 15 hips are actually going back into the community, because none of them are getting physiotherapy, because the therapy is not being given to them for months, because there's no therapy appointments for them in the short space of time. Are they going back? What are you measuring? Are you measuring the performance of how many hips you do against whether the patients go back into society in some meaningful way? And I
No,
think this is management, Sumant.
they,
This
yeah,
is
doctor, what I'm saying, they measure it by the amount of half
yes.
hips that come out of inventory. So
Right. So
they,
when you put CEOs for 10 years, right, who have absolutely no understanding of what I just told you in terms of dividing 2,800 by 770, right? Or bringing to the pharmacist to say, well, out of the 500 drugs that you are dispensing, talking to the doctors to do clinical audits to measure the performance of these medications,
none is
right?
done.
Somebody
Nothing.
doing a random check, because when the doctor who comes 7 o'clock in the morning does his runs, right? 8 o'clock. And he says, okay, put him on this, put him on this, put him on this. And he goes home. Good. He goes home to his private practice then at 10 o'clock. That chart goes down to the pharmacy, right? The pharmacist with the other junior pharmacists or dispensers, they will send back a drug and say, not available, right? So
Mhm.
that drug comes upstairs now after lunch, mind you, the doctor orders it at 8 o'clock. It comes up after lunch and it says, not available, right? The doctors, all the doctors, because the senior doctors are going home. Once they're not on call, the junior doctors go on too. So it means that there's no one in the evening, assuming that unit is not on call, to go back to that patient. The nurses doesn't flag the fact that there is no drug available. So the next morning, doctor comes on the road and he said, "Is this what happened? Why you didn't get it? It's not available." NA. So which means a whole blasted 24 hours goes by and this man does not
Put on
have the drug.
medication.
You see? So this is the kind of issues that are not taken up in a heads of department meeting, right? When they analyze it, nobody is looking at these little small things. So when for 10 years, right? These things go on when everybody, all they're doing is they just want to come and get a salary, make sure no trouble, do what they have to do. Everything remains in status quo. The roads remain in status quo and get potholes. There is no maintenance of infrastructure, so everything goes down, right? In other words, immigration, we have every other single country in the Caribbean has virtual admission cards to get in, except Trinidad and Tobago. So the only country now that filling out forms right now is Trinidad and Tobago. Everybody, you could go virtually and fill it out, and by the time you reach immigration, has your card. Huh? All over the world that is happening now. You tell me, count and tell me how many places in the world you can fill. So immigration, status quo. National security, vehicles are running down. Nobody's measuring what they're doing. It just, the PNM just kept everything in status quo. So that is
But
why we are in the situation we are now. And what I'm
And
hoping,
have the audacity to come into parliament and rant and rave and bark big
that's
like
right.
them did something, you know? Go
Because
ahead,
you
go ahead.
see, right now, what we have now is we have a period of change. So what we are hoping now is that when the budget is finished in the Senate, I think it was finished in the upper house. So we are hoping now that when it becomes to allocate now within the next month, an allocation is coming in now through the Ministry of Finance, and the ministries are saying, well, they want to get some of the money at least for this few months before the Christmas. Good.
Mhm.
That some of the funds now will be able to be accessible, right, by the ministers, and of course in the programs that exist within the ministry. What the ministers have to understand now is that there were a lot of programs that were ongoing from the PNM. So what will have to happen is that they should really sit down now and go through all the programming, right, and decide on which ones are the ones that fit into their manifestos, right? Each one
All
of their
right.
different manifestos,
All
so
right.
that they can begin to say, well, look, you know what, we're going to hold on to XXX, this, and this is what PNM just lock, stock, and barrel, stop everything. Anything that UNC was doing or People's Partnership, they just stop it, right? And they will do their own. But you see, we now have more common sense. We're not going to stop something that is good. We're not going to stop something that is benefiting the people, right? But we will try to implement something on us to piggyback on what is there. And I think that is where the common sense will come in. The second thing is that I do, and I keep saying all the little points I make about the little pharmacy document that needs to be checked. It needs to be monitored. It needs to be reported on. It needs to be, you need to know whether the 10 people who are going on with their hips are getting better rather than just doing the hips itself and sending and asking for 500 hips when the year comes and saying, well, I want 500 of these prostheses because I am putting in 20 a week, and that's your performance indicator. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
clearly, the
Yeah.
performance indicators are wrong. And the medical director, in the first instance, has to sit with the heads of the departments. And there are at that time I had 16 service lines, and I had 16 heads of departments. And I would sit with all of them, together at a heads of department meeting, and I would meet with them individually and go through it, right? And I would had every morning I used to ask the medical records person to bring in 20 medical records for me randomly, and I will do an audit of that before I leave the hospital during the day, going through simple things like the diagnosis in the front of the page, diagnosis of death, how they code deaths, right? The whether the junior doctors are writing, that the SMOs are with the patients, and I started to find, when I tell you, hundreds of problems, right? Right now, Saman, right now, Gary, Fazia. One of my work is that I am actually doing forensic medicine work for a lot of attorneys who are filing lawsuits against the RHAs right now. Right, that is one of my biggest revenue earning thing that I'm doing now. And do you know what is the biggest problem? Documentation by the doctors. They're not writing things down. They're losing money, right? It's oozing money from all the RHAs because they're not writing properly and documenting what they're doing.
That's a
So it comes
very,
like they're not
very
doing.
big issue with nurses and
Yes,
doctors.
yes,
Especially in Trinidad, documentation is so poorly done. When I was there for
yeah,
1 year, it was
yeah,
incredible how poorly.
yes,
They just
and
didn't care. They just didn't
yes.
matter to them.
Yeah,
They just
and,
want to
and the
get home.
writing the
Yeah,
writing is
yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
And
Right.
we had started when I was there. We gave all the heads of departments laptops. I got that, right. We got laptops, and we said, listen, we are going to give you a laptop. So okay, we can't stop you from going to your private practice because if you do that, everybody will strike. So the problem now is you have to say, well, look, okay, listen, go, right? But when I go, I'm going to give you a laptop, and in that laptop, I want you to do. So I'll go with performance. If you are performing, and I'm giving you these 10 deliverables to give me at the end of the month, and even if you do it at home or the beach, I don't really damn care. Once you can give me
Mhm.
these 15 deliverables,
All right.
right?
All
I
right.
will I will suggest that as performance and time spent towards what I want. This is what's happening right now with people who are working at home and all of these things due to the COVID. In other words, then it's about the performance. If you can give me my deliverables, right, at the end of the month, whether you work in a car, the beach, or home, I want it. And once I
Yes.
get it,
All
it means
right.
that I'm
All right.
performing. Correct?
Yep.
But to do
Yep.
that, Sumant, you have to have people who are qualified managers and executives who are able to do that. You see, if these people don't have that competency to set out the deliverables and the goals, measure it, see if it's making sense, align it back to the strategic plans, right, and the mission, right? Report it to some person who is monitoring at a ministerial level or at a board level. So you put a set of backsides on the boards, that's one. You put people who are not competent as CEOs, and you elect medical directors who have no training in management now. So you can't do these things at the medical director, you can't do it at the nursing level, so you can't cascade it back up now to the CEO, who is not able now to put in the correct management procedures to take it back up to the chairman of the board and the medical doctor on the board. And when you go there now, it's a set of people who they put on the board, like people who have not done anything
Who
when
have
they were
no
there,
clue.
and
Who
you
have
put them
no
back on the
clue.
board. So there's no way that they can actually give you the type of management skills coming from a board downwards. So Crapo is seemingly gonna smoke the pipe again because we end up
Again,
doing the same nonsense.
and
It's
that's what I've been saying, Doc, from time to time. We're doing the same thing. We have the new ministers and the UNC ministers. We have the same old PSAs and senior staff and AO5 and AO4 and AO2 and technical advisors. They're the same. Now, how can you get new results or different results in a UNC manifesto, what they're planning to do, the development of the island and so on? How are you going to get your existing staff who is there to implement what you want to be done? It
that
ain't going to
It
happen.
wouldn't happen. That cannot happen.
It cannot happen.
There's too much big of a knowledge gap. There's too much lack of information, and there's not the resources are not there. You have to bring in people like us who have
Competent,
been qualified,
competent.
who have their
Who can,
MBAs in health assessment and health management,
correct?
who have the experience, who have the knowledge to bring it and implement change. The people you
You
have, they're
see,
not gonna, they don't know any different.
they don't know. Probably
They
that's the
don't know any
reason why
different.
So
they got
the,
5 O levels and they just make 30
Yeah.
years in the service and they
so
reach up to where
So
they
we
reach.
have so what we have to do as us, we have to create a solution, right? Because of course, if we keep saying that this is what's happening and we're not suggesting a solution, it's
Correct.
just as bad. So my
Yes.
solution, my recommendation for a solution, is that let us see what they do. Of course, they started doing the thing with the board already. So fine, okay. So that's almost like a culture. So let's see what happens, right? Then the CEOs, I am positive. I'm hearing things that people who have been very supportive to the party, who have given to the party, they have already been nominated for those senior positions, right? So fine, okay, fine. So my suggestion is that we have a team like us, right? We are saying to you, listen, who is the advisor to Dr. Bodo? Now, again, here is a person, no disrespect to him. Colin Furlong is a very good guy. He's nice. He worked in the health sector. He was chief medical officer. He was a medical director at San Fernando for years. He led the strike, right? The doctors' strike, and they got, back pay and all of these things for doctors. He got more money for them. So he's a very good person. He's a good dermatologist. He worked private practice, and he did his time. Now, I suggest that one, or even, it doesn't have to be me, but there must be somebody like me, right, who have the qualifications and the experience, right, in healthcare management or any related type of competency to sit with the minister and say, okay, all that we just said, right, this is how we are going to achieve it. We don't care what your manifesto is. Your manifesto is what you guys decide. So man, you help them with that. So it has good excellent things in it right now. It's contemporary, right? It's contemporary science, contemporary management, right? Contemporary deliverables, right? In a modern day healthcare world, it's a dynamic sector. It changes. If you have one pandemic, it's going to change the whole thing. That's how
Mhm.
healthcare is. Healthcare is not a static, it's a very complex type of system that needs to be managed. The people are very complex. Highly professionals are one of the highest and most difficult teams to manage. Professional nurses, professional doctors. Let me tell you something. Professional engineers, professional IT. It's a difficult bunch, and that is evidence based. That is based on studies on professional teams globally. So we know that. But how can we solve the problem in terms of having that competency? My suggestion, I reiterate, is that we put together, right, these sort of managerial courses, right? Certificate courses that could be done through UTT or University of the West Indies. Sumant, we talked about going to the South Campus in certain areas. And if we can offer these certificate packages where some could be done virtually and some could be done practically, right? Then we can offer the government a solution which I think will prevent and save money, because what's going to do is going to cut off a lot of duplication. It's going to reduce a lot of the problems that we talked about. For example, I use Zalacom eye drops. One vial of Zalacom costs me $385 TT, right? In Canada, I got my GP, who is a Trinidadian, girl. She's working part time at one of the medical centers here, and trust me, getting a GP here is crazy in Canada, right? I had to go through the same problem because the regulatory practices are very, very stringent. So I had to get a doctor to order all the medicine that I get. I had to go and get a doctor to refer me to an endocrinologist, which took me about 8 months. And another doctor was, thank God, right? Chandra Sharma has a relative who works in a clinic in Scarborough here, and she was able to put me on to the doctor there who was the GP, because although she's a doctor, she can't work here. So she was working as a sort of advisor clinic, assisting the doctor, so to speak. And she was actually seeing the patients for the doctor, and then he would sign it because he trusted her clinical practice, because she was very high up at San
Yeah.
Fernando. She was almost a registrar. So I was able to get
Like,
the prescriptions, right? And I was able to go now and get medications which are not available in Trinidad. When you look at what I'm doing now, I get the Zalacom here, and it's of course with the insurance. I only pay about, I think, 35 Canadian with my insurance here in Canada. So I'm getting the medications that you talked about. Losartan. We have Losartan home in the private sector, right? Something called Bisoprolol or Concor. One of those tablets is about $5 home. That is because I can't, of course, although I'm a doctor, I don't do CDAP because the drugs are outdated. The drugs are not helping. Of course, I order CDAP in my practice. I have the CDAP forms, right? And some of my patients, I will go and give them Enalapril and, the generic, rosuvastatin, but it's not rosuvastatin. Now, Alacram has brought in rosuvastatin. I use
Presto,
40
Presto.
milligrams Presto right now, 40 milligrams. I'm here, and I get it at the at Shoppers here because I have the insurance, so I have the medications here. When I go home, I don't get it through CDAP. I have to buy them.
So you have insurance in Canada? Is that what you
Yes, I
say?
do. I have, yes. So
Okay.
so plus I as a permanent resident here, I get free medical care. I have today I went
Yeah,
and I had my cardiologist,
you might get
and he's giving me
Medicaid once
yeah,
you're
my cardiologist
65,
next
you
week
get Medicaid.
next week Thursday I'm
Everything.
getting a
Yeah.
nuclear heart scan because he said he has to do a perfusion test. So I'm going to get a PET scan here next week to check my heart flow because I have a 70% block, an angiogram. I did an angiogram a few months ago, and he told me that today next week Thursday I'm going in. I've been booked for a perfusion scan, right? A nuclear scan. And of course, all of that is free. But of course, when you say free, we're paying the taxes for it anyhow you look at it here. You understand? So the point about it is that I come back to what we are saying. Then, if we can implement these managerial courses, Sumant, we can do it. If we can get the ministers to say, well, look, okay, when Colin has finished his term, right, why don't you have one of us be the advisor if you think that will work? So if you don't want it and you want to keep him there, why don't the government have an advisory team, right, that could be set up in such a way that we can have specific competencies in each one of the ministries. For example, you would have competencies, Sumant, in a couple of the ministries. I
Yeah.
obviously could help in a couple of the ministries, namely disaster management, forensic medicine, as well as healthcare management. So I have a Ministry of National Security, kind of Homeland Security, border security thing, and I have health, right? So you don't have to say, well, look, I have to stick to just healthcare, right? I mean, Fazia, you can do a
You
lot with
see,
healthcare. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
can do a lot with
yeah,
health in terms of
but
healthcare management
yeah,
because I had done my master's work in
doc,
healthcare systems
yeah,
management
yeah.
and public health. That
you
was my
know, I
master's.
I I saw one minister and he said, well, why don't you send me a resume? Come and see me. I did. See, but I don't know what kind of job you're looking for. My degree is in economics, but I have 3 masters and MBA in tourism and information systems, as well as tourism. I did as a minor on the side. I have a master's in hospitality management and I have a master's in electronic marketing. So we don't know where it can we fit you in the economics.
And we have Dr. Parung who can open the heart and perform a surgery.
Right, but that's one aspect, Doc. The other aspect is that I recently upgraded me over the past 5 years into digital marketing specialist. I'm a data analytics and also AI. So he said out of these 7 or 8 specializations, where we confused. And this is the same thing. He's telling me, if you're going to apply for any job, stick to one. Don't tell him you qualified in this or that and that and that and that. You ain't going to get nothing. That was a blunt response. And I said,
is that what he said?
Yeah, I'm saying that is a blunt response to tell me that I cannot. You said you will not find a job. You say I put you an economist and leave it like that.
Wow.
But because
no?
where are they going to place you?
Your skills are so transferable, though. Those are very much transferable skills. Like that's such a short.
So I say, well, look.
No?
Let me just finish one point. I said, well, look, give me any job you have, but it's managerial, accounting, and I'm a financial controller in Miami Beach for 12 years, right? So on top of that, I say, well, give me any job you have, and I bet you I'll deliver superior result to you all. And if I don't, after 6 months, you fire me. You know, I said I'm bringing all these skills. I can bring marketing skills, financial skills, economic skills, IT skills into any position you have. I can use all these resources and training and experience I have in these various fields to make superlative decision making for you, from strategic planning and implementation right down to writing policies. You know, give me any job you have, I'll super perform on it. You say, well, we don't know, we will have to pay you this and that because of your qualification, but I think it was all excuses. In short, I think it was all, you try to get rid of me as fast as you can, because these fellas kind of feel threatened in a way when you come with superior
That's a problem. That's exactly a problem. When you see that mindset that they have, that maybe they are threatened by you, or you know more than them, and they don't want you in. That's nonsense. That's what's holding back productivity and opportunity in the country.
So I'm suggesting that we could lobby Gary for a national advisory board or a national advisory team, right? A cabinet appointed team, which is a national advisory team, right? That can suggest, right? And one of the things we're saying, we want to work smarter. By working smarter, you can use smaller budgets and have better deliverables, which align back to your manifesto. In other words, then to achieve your manifesto, you need an integrated approach, right, to achieving that manifesto. Since government literally operates in silos, since you have the PNM influence that is within the public service that will take a very long time for you to get rid of, we are suggesting, since you do not have that competency, that degree or level of competency, that even if you are to be politically correct and put some of your key loyalists, right, into CEO positions in many of the areas of government, including healthcare and whatever, that when you put those CEOs in, they will need to have some degree of training. We also think that boards of directors, right, are not competent in management and looking at the key deliverables of the statutory authorities and any other ministries per se that is under their under their jurisdiction, or at least under their supervision. And so what we're suggesting is that if you don't want to bring in a lot of foreign people, hundreds of thousands of dollars to put big executives to work in your WASAs and all of these big companies, your NGCs and all these big boards, where you're paying people $200,000-300,000, a month. Why don't you have this national advisory team, right? Who will consist of about 10 or 12 persons who have competencies and are able to get other people to come on board if you have certain things that you need. For
Correct.
example, you have structural things that you want to build a causeway from Chaguanas across to the eastern to the western part of the country. You have a causeway that you want to build from Manzanillo to connect Mayaro from to Sangre Grande. You have a causeway that you want to connect San Fernando to Faizabad because that highway. So you need to build at least 3 or 4 causeways right away. Right now, all of these things we may not have that competency, but I am positive that we have persons who have the managerial skills to teach the current persons who are there, right? The director of highways, the CEO of WASA, all of those persons whom you might want to put, who is your person. Fine, listen. If it is, that's what you want to do, fine. But why don't you have a session where we can meet with these boards, right? We can provide some degree of virtual training to the boards, all of the boards, all right, and give us a monthly stipend, right, when it comes to this national advisory team. And what we can begin to do is to have all your boards trained on an ongoing basis, pull all the key performance indicators in each one of the sectors, so that we can manage basically the boards in such a saying, well, look, these are what we think you should be doing. We will suggest they don't have to do it, but at least we are teaching them managerial skills. In cases where you do have competent managers who are managing the board, we don't want to usurp and say, well, look, we are saying that we know better. No, it is going to be an added advantage. In other words, that we will see eye to eye.
Complementing.
You know, we will be supporting and facilitating. It's not that we want to take over, but we want to standardize. We want to make sure that at the end of it, every month or two, when you go down to the cabinet, you can say you have a dashboard for the prime minister, right, or the leader of government business, or whatever. Say, look, this is your dashboard. This is what you're achieving, and you're basing it back to your manifestos, right? And I think that this might be a solution. It might be something that we could sell. So, Samantha, if you want to discuss it with Gary, we can put up a proposal, right? Present it to the boss. We can present it to her through Gary, myself, and we can say, well, look, this is something that we think, right? This is that we, seeing that we don't want to go back and do what happened in People's Partnership, in PNM, in NAR, in UNC, where we put our people, but sometimes some of these may not, and in a chain. Right, one weak link could bring down the entire party. One weak link. So
Yeah.
all we need to do is we need to try to create a universal, right, management program, and train your current persons who are loyal to you, who you want to put in your loyal position. Fine with us, but we want to bring them up to some degree and some standard of management competencies. Well, I mean, that to me is the solution.
I mean, I would like to think we are an overall advisory team, and I did ask that we design a strategic module that it is multi-ministry, multifaceted in the management style because of the information and capabilities Suman has there. That we could put something together that could formulate how
But
how we manage government and deal with the
but
issues in the ministries, with the PS and all this kind of thing. That all those who try to create hurdles and obstacles for us there. So these are things. So Doc, soon as you get back to Trinidad, let's get some things going. But I want to try to do a lot of things remotely. But I do need that drafted, and Suman is physically there now. So
wasn't that
let's
done?
communicate offline and put it together.
I think that was done in Nagari. Wade was in charge of that. He did something on that along those lines. We call
Yeah,
it
but I
the
mean,
think
that doesn't
tank.
matter it's all of us say, I mean, you're
Yeah,
lenient to criteria with drafting these things. So let's do some consultation offline, and we will put it together. You did draft a few things already. But I think we need to make a physical entrance now, not remotely. Even though we working remotely, I need somebody to do something physical for us now. There, whether it's you, Dr. Ramop, and we had our June there also. And then
Sumant, your document that you had submitted to LACRA Bodo, in terms of the formatting, with the executive summary, it was brief, and ministers don't want to read plenty thing now, even the
you
prime minister, right?
I
So
didn't include anything, but I wanted if someone is listening, I can expound on everything a lot more.
yeah, so I think
yeah,
what we
so
can
that
do,
make an appointment to the Prime Minister office then.
let us do an outline, a very brief outline, because one thing about PM, she gets very bored very quickly if you keep brimbling on. I had that experience with her many times where I sit before
Well,
her
anybody else,
and
Dr.
so
Ramroop, you
yeah,
have to get straight to the
yeah.
point,
So
highlight
right
the
now,
points.
these
Yeah.
guys, these ministers and them, they don't want too much thing because they just want to hear something that meets with them. I am suggesting that we hit the prime minister herself, right, and say, look, we do not have a problem. We want to help, and the best way for us to help is that we have a team, a cadre of persons we are not interested in. I mean, we have not been assigned, and we are not interested in any big board positions or anything. What we want to do is we want to advise and teach and bring up the level and standard of all your executives within the government, the political assignments, as well as some of the other assignments that will be done for key managerial and executive positions, right, throughout the government and all the statutory authorities. In other words, then we want to standardize a degree of management that allows you, as the Honorable Prime Minister, to achieve the goals that you have set out, right, with your team. And we will also allow a reporting that is in a format that is easy for you and the cabinet to understand and gives you an ongoing assessment of your performance in all those areas and see where your strengths and weaknesses are to get us to not just getting cutting down the expenses, streamlining government, but also to allow us to deliver to the people in such a way that we can have another 5 years of governance and even more.
And this is how you have to sell it. You have to sell it as for another 5 years. That is the critical point. You have to sell it to make sure that you or the UNC gets another 5 years in government, because it's
So Sumant,
all
I
going
think
to
that
be a
you
reset.
do Sumant, I look at your documents and I think that you have a skill that allows it to be brief to the point, right? And you have had that previous air of the Prime Minister through the healthcare issue. So I'm suggesting that maybe you can draft a document with that position that we are talking about. It's a position paper, right? It's a suggestion, right? We're not mandating anything. We're not casting aspersions that you don't have competencies there. We need to put that very clearly. We're not
But
saying
but,
that
but Doc,
yeah.
first of all, we have to clarify we are a risk management team, right?
Well, risk management is definitely part
Yeah,
of
and
the
so in the
part of
sense
the
that so we are not trying to
competency.
overstimulate anybody.
Yes.
Anything that we doing should be widely appreciated because we have clarified ourselves, and we could clarify that in the document that we are a risk management team. That's how we see ourselves. We are here to prevent the risks. We are here to prevent anything that can cause damage to the reputation of the government and also upgrade the level of services. That is the agenda with us right here. Go ahead.
And of course, I like the word integrated, right? So we present an integrated approach to governance, right? That embeds the contemporary and the management standard that is required of our executives and key political appointments, right? As well as the competencies in senior executive and managerial positions of government to achieve the goal and streamline governance, right, in order to achieve our goals in the short, medium, and long term. Right. So, in other words, then this is basically what we are. We are an advisory team, and our approach is based on, it's a risk-based approach, which is a contemporary enterprise risk-based approach, right? And it allows all the service lines of government, all the service lines and all the statutory authorities, but it integrates the approach and it creates a standard by which it can be measured by the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, and her cabinet.
I don't play chess, but as I know, in chess, when you play in chess, you make the wrong move, you're done.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
but
yep.
that is the risk, that is the risk aversion, what you're trying to avoid. Because, I mean, you have these boards, and let's face it, all these boards in this political, boards don't do anything. This board's supposed to set the direction, the strategic direction, and the CEO is the in-between of the boards and the ministry or the statutory body or whatever you call it. But the CEO is like the middleman who carries out the mandate of the boards. But generally, these boards are political appointees,
Yeah, but Subhan, what I'm asking
right?
you to do at this point, let's step up our actions and make an appointment to the Prime Minister office if you have to. But let's make a physical appearance now, because instead of trying to communicate and being, on the phone or the email, I mean, I am hoping for a physical
That's
entrance
not
with you guys.
working. That's not working. Emails and phone calls, and they tell you
But what I'm saying, you want me to
all
make the
these
call? You
government.
want me to make the phone call? You're physically there. Do you want me to make a call and ask?
Yes, well,
I
let
made
us,
some calls.
Gary, definitely you would have to. I tried to get something to her a couple of days ago, and I was told by the front desk by her there that everything that is going to her would have to go through her constituency office in Siparia, right?
Okay.
Although I'm the neighbor, and if I want to send some parasat, I have to send it to Siparia, right? So it is because of that being a government, a very a very highly secure environment, and now it's not even a residence again. So I mean, even we as neighbors, right? We have to understand that. So we have to send anything that we have to send there, even if it's a letter. Right? It can't go to the mailbox now. It has to go to the constituency office
All right.
in Superior. So we have
So
a
let's do that. So let's
right.
do that
So
then.
the only contact I have with Nextdoor is Greg, who is my good friend from before. So I normally would send Greg a WhatsApp or give him a call. I would call him on the home line, and then I will have a chat with him, and he would he would get a message across. So what I'm suggesting is that for those of you all who don't know, I just live next door to the Honorable Prime Minister and her husband Greg. So I'm talking about literally next door. So I think that before we do anything, Gary, let
But
us
we, Doc, but we have
let's get
waited
a
long
document.
enough. I mean,
Let's
and the
agree.
thing, yeah.
I know we don't have everybody here. Dr. Maraj is not here. Ved is not here. We have Varun here. Fazia is here. Sumant is here. We have some other persons that we can probably connect with, maybe by a Zoom meeting, Gary, if you want to do that. Let us agree. Let us agree to at least let us agree to, if you all agree with me, this is a very maybe a good approach whereby we can provide some virtual skills to these boards,
Yeah, but what I'm
right?
saying to you is make a physical connection, whether you go to Siparia
Yeah,
or
well,
wherever
no.
you
I
go.
think before we do that, we need ourselves to find out exactly what we are agree that we are going to
What
do.
we're gonna do, yeah.
Right. So once we do that, then what we can do is to frame a white paper, a brief document.
But I thought
Yeah.
Suman had all that ready. You thought he had
No,
all
no,
that
no,
ready.
no. We don't. We have it fragmented because what we are suggesting here now is a more comprehensive, overarching document that says we want to be on a national advisory team, right? That is able to help the honorable prime minister, right? In such a way that we are not saying that she's not doing a good job, or we are not saying that the boards are not capable. What we are, and the chairman of those boards that they've put in positions. What we are saying is that in order to have in the contemporary space, right, and to prevent what happened in the past in terms of people's partnership, where you're performing so well, and then all of a sudden you lose government because of some naughtiness and whatever. Let us put something that we can secure government for another 5 or 10 years. And let us allow you, as the Honorable Prime Minister, to see that in real terms, in a management sense, by training by bringing to the. I'm not going to repeat. I'm saying it over and over. So what we are saying, let us put that document in place, and then we send that document to her and arrange a meeting to discuss it.
Well, my
Physical meeting.
mission and my objective when I started this team was to make sure that I advise the Prime Minister, so she
But
does
you,
not get blindsided.
so you are correct, and this is what we are doing. Exactly what you told
All
her you would
right.
be
So
doing. It's just that you're going in with a
whatever
group of
whatever she
people.
does with the information after we give it to her
That's
is
correct.
totally on her.
And
But I
we
want
will
to make
go.
sure we
Yeah.
deliver it.
Right, you deliver it,
Right,
and
and
you will make an arrangement. Gary, with your assistance, if she is at least hearing you and listening to you, you can be the inroad, right? Because she's not listening to me again for some reason. So what it is that, and maybe Sumant, I don't know what's happening, but what we're gonna do, we want to get to her with no one else. Let's get to her. And once we get that document, we have something to give to her, to talk to her about. 10, 15 minutes, that's all we need. And what she does with it after, well, it's c'est la vie.
no, my understanding is that everything has to go through the superior office.
Yeah, well, I think this is
I
where we
think
could arrange to send it first, because I know the girls there. I mean, I know them from long, and I've been there. I've been in that
yeah,
office helping since I came back from Jamaica. So the point about it is that
yeah,
I know them, and I'm sure the document will reach. And I have my driver take it down as well and
Doc,
deliver it. And,
we will do both. All right.
yeah,
We will send it both ways. All right.
yeah,
So do that, and then and I also will send from my end so that
right.
it's
So let
so
us.
nobody can take what we send there and
That's
dump it
correct. And
aside
throw it away. Yes.
and it wasn't reached. So
Right.
we will do it both ways.
So let us have that document at least. Let us tweak it amongst ourselves. Let us make sure that we are all
right.
agreeing to what we intend to do, right? And it doesn't mean that Sumant, you cannot get a job as an advisor at one of the ministry. It doesn't mean that I can be hired as CEO of the ODPM. The point is, this is something that we're providing above whatever we may need or we might want. In other words, then this is something that the government needs. And in order to secure governance, there's nothing else that exists. The party does not exist right now in terms of NATEX, right? As we mentioned. So there is
That's
nothing that exists, right now within the party, right, to allow that integrated approach, right, to help the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, right? All things being equal, Barry is good, but Barry alone cannot do that because he is really the actor. What we need is something stronger, more resilient, and more contemporary when it comes to management science, right? As well as evidence based, right?
So
Technology and whatever.
how about you have a conversation with Barry too? You know,
Well,
we'll talk
that
about
we
that off here.
we
We'll
could
talk
take
about
that
that
off
off here.
here. We could take that off here because, to be honest with you, I don't think that is possible. But nothing is impossible. I think once we have a team that is willing and it's that we all agree on what we want to do, we could tweak it. There are some things that I might want but not need. The team might
Well,
need. So let us tweak it. Yeah,
all
yeah.
right,
The
okay.
thing
So listen to me. We talk it, we want it done, right? I mean, I thought that was already kind of thing, but let's get it
No,
done.
I
All
think
right.
I would like to suggest, Sumant, I really would like to suggest that you can frame a document similar to what you did for Bodo, right? It's something that we can talk upon, that we can draft in that, and then we can now flesh it out a bit and neaten it up, right, with whatever we would want in each area. And basically we once we agree on it, we could have a panchayat on it, and either in Zoom or this forum, whatever it is, and then we can say, okay, fine, this is our white paper, this is what we would, and this is where we stand,
Well,
right? If we do this, we can make a difference. And if you don't want it, it's fine, but we have offered, and this is it.
well, in my business and the way I see things is that we make the recommendation and it's totally up to management how to deal with it, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
what we don't fail to make the recommendation and the indicators.
Yeah.
What the issues are, right? And that's what I want from us is that we don't fail to recommend. What happens after that is not on us.
Yeah, we're not going
Yeah,
to drill it down. Yeah,
yeah.
we're
No,
not
I
going to
think
drill
this
it
is the
down.
least that we can do for sure. With
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
expertise, I think it's the least that we can do, and whatever she does with it, she does with it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly the
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
And it'll be more like an executive summary because we
Mhm.
don't want to go and drill it down. We don't want to go and drill it
No,
down by
no,
saying,
just
well, these are the
basic bullet
KPIs or whatever.
pointed,
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
just basic
Yes.
important points that we
Yeah.
suggest from
Yeah.
expertise,
Yeah.
experience that
Yeah.
would be helpful
Yeah.
to change, to change mindset and to change the way they see things.
Yeah.
Because we
You
have to
see,
implement change,
I
somehow.
correct, Pasha and Doc. I think we have the central focus of this, all of this thing is how is continuity. Basically, that's what it is.
Hmm.
How are you going to be in a position to win the next election and be in power for another 5 years? So
But also
that should be the
to deliver. Listen, we supported a government and a party because we wanted certain things done, and
so
if we don't get, I mean, and if and these things has to get done in order. I see, in order to succeed into government going forward,
correct. So you're working. That's what you
we
call
must be
about
good on delivery. We must deliver by the time the 5 year term up. We must
right.
have quite a bit
So
of things done. You
so
know,
the outcome, Gary, is to be in government for another 5 years, starting in 2030. So up to 2035. But for that to happen, X, Y, and Z must happen. The
well,
deliverables
I mean,
you
we are doing our part. I mean, to make
said,
sure that we the delivery is there. So.
you're okay. You have
But I'm
15.
not going to put up with the gatekeepers. I'm sorry, I'm not going to put up with the gatekeepers.
You
You
have
know,
15 road poles. How are you going to
I'm going to
achieve that?
behave like remember Mr. T and from 18
Yeah,
who used to
yeah,
knock down
yeah.
the doors and things like that. I'm going to say. So
We have
anyway, yeah. So
we have quite a we
let's
have
get the
listen,
document
we
going.
have quite a lot of work to do because we have all the counselors and all the men. That's a team of people we have to give some management skills, right? That's one. We have all the boards, all the statutory boards, yeah, and all the chairmen, yeah. And
That's
then at
1,500
the
people
level,
there.
yeah, and at the level
That's
of the level of the organizations, institutions, we have the CEOs. That is the CEOs that they will put, and I'm positive they're going to put their people. So the thing about it is that these are listen, there are three levels, right? And after that, now, maybe a second, third, fourth year, we can start dealing with the CEOs. Man, you see, we're not gonna the CEOs that we teach, the boards that we teach, they are the ones now going to have to train their managers, right? Because we are going to give them the trainer training, right? So that was then we will see the results based on what they are delivering and what is happening in the community, in the papers. We will see the results. So we
ag-
ourselves will develop our own scorecard to monitor the performance of these boards. So this is what we want to do, right? So I think we
and
have counselors, aldermen, right? All the persons that they have elected as chairman of the corporations, for example, all the CEOs of the corporations, all the CEOs of the boards, right? All the boards. These are the people that we're targeting. Right? And because you don't have a party, a UNC party structure that is doing it, the ministers don't have the time. You don't have anybody providing that assistance to you. We want you to recognize this national advisory team, and we want to start, and we can do it in stages. We could use UE South Campus as a physical meeting room, for example. You understand? We could use
Mhm.
UTT, right? We have certificate courses that could be offered through these boards to the managers to even do again. And these are the things that we're talking about, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Dr.
I think
good.
Farooq,
I think the
good.
option of virtual classes should be there too, because with their schedule, they
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
won't be able
We
to attend the physical
virtual. I tell you,
classes.
listen. I did
But
a
they will
whole
be part of it.
a course in healthcare risk management and root cause analysis for the Eastern Regional Health Authority, and 60% of that course I did it online. The other 50% was at my beach house in Mayaro because it was close. So I did some physical drills and whatever there for them. So I mean, listen, it can be done both ways.
Yeah,
Hybrid. Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
Hybrid system. Yeah.
I don't believe we're really capitalizing on the technology that's at hand in today's world. And I mean, when, like I said, when the minister said that to come home, you don't really have to come home physically. You come home virtually. You know, and because I'm encouraging people to go home virtually first. And establish that foundation and start to till the ground virtually.
Yeah, I'm going down to
Um,
Miami when I go back home because I have a meeting with two CSI departments there. and they're willing to assist us in doing like virtual autopsies and training of forensic people to do virtual scene investigations, where they can use these equipment to send back the videos. And I
Yeah.
mean, listen,
Well,
this
well,
is
don't
amazing.
forget we have Dr. Parum here, right here, so a few miles away from we.
Right. I mean,
Yep.
An expert.
Once Trump gets out of the waters here, I'm positive that we can start sending some ships across there for Varun to help us in some of these things.
Well,
But my
we might have
intention
to,
is,
we will have to send a drone to pick up Arun.
yeah. Well, I can be over there. Well, here's what one of the everything that you all said is okay, but yet we have to have their managers who are very qualified, yes, but they are not committed to their work. That is one of my experience with managing hospitals and the health sector. Commitment with heart and soul is needed. You can be very well qualified and in many ways, but if you are not have commitment, or you have the idea of sabotaging, as how the PNM government has their people all over, and that is one of our biggest problems. One of the things is that when we give a task, you have to have the deadline task. Look at the Americans, the Germans, the Russians. These people, they work with a timeline. I need this to be 100%. I need this to do in a certain time. And you do not finish it, you get fired or you go to jail. That drastically like that. So one thing is have a project, and the next one is to maintain the project and how you say on time schedule is very important, and results. That's why monitoring and evaluation of the performances of these directors and these persons are Yes. critical. You need to Right. set what is it you want expect as an outcome after you have been trained. Yes. What are the deliverables? Are you going to
Suman,
do it when?
Suman, I worked for like nearly 15 years in the health sector, right, in the hospital of San Fernando. And the performance appraisal system is crap.
It's
Right?
non-existent. It
It's
doesn't
it's
exist.
it's
It doesn't. It's a
BS.
joke.
It's
It's a joke.
BS. Listen, I had
Let's.
my
Okay.
junior officers had to have performance appraisals by the consultants, right? The
Yeah. Yes.
consultants had to have performance appraisals by the head of the
Uh huh.
department. I was in charge as the medical chief of staff of 16 or 18 heads of departments, doctors, right? So they now had to get a performance appraisal from me, right? So to have a renewal of a contract or an annual review, a performance appraisal has to be an ongoing thing. And all that Varun talked about is embedded in those performance appraisals. Except what
Yeah.
it is
Yes.
that they just tick off these things, and because a junior doctor makes coffee for them or
Mm-hmm.
covers for them, because they in the
You
private
get a
practice, they want to
4
head out
instead
at
of a
9.
3.
So the
Carry
registrar, and you see, this is the reason. I
Yeah.
mean, Fazia, that was how you started. The reason why you have no upward movement in the health sector is because the consultants who are fairly young hold on to these top positions. The younger people sucking up to them so they could go in a private office too. Good. So which means that in a sense you're really at a standstill. So although Dr. Bodo would have a manifesto that he wants to do all of these things, who are the prime movers of getting things done in the hospital? It's going to be the doctors, right? And the senior nursing. So if you do not have a proper performance appraisal system, if you do not correct the situation right now where doctors are working in their private practice after, because their remuneration in hospital is pathetic in terms of international standards, and you can't pay them more, obviously, not with this budget and this deficit, you are going to be in a problem. One of the proposals we have, they are innovative solutions. I had a solution that I gave them that was done in Israel by the captain of he was at a hospital in Miami. I went across there, right? And I spent time with him. He told me what they did in Israel to cut down the private practice that they had there, because they had a big problem with private practice in Israel. And they did things, and I recommended. I even told this boy Rudal Monilal about it, and the People's Partnership Government, because he was the only one who was listening to me then. So the thing about it is that there are solutions. And if we don't do these things and you don't have a medical director who can manage it, you don't have a proper performance appraiser. Varun, exactly what you're talking about there, right, is captured by a system called a performance appraisal system. If it works properly, you'll get rid of things and they are able to manage. Managers must be trained to manage. And this is one of the
Yeah.
things we are offering. We are
Right.
offering to the
Right.
current
But what?
managers who may not
Mhm.
have that skill, to the current medical director who was just put there because he was an old doctor who stayed in the hospital for years and they put him there because they had nobody else to put there. Good. Or he went and he actually was the private doctor of a senior minister in government. So he gets the position because obviously he knows the minister. That's how it was. It happened in PNM. It happened in UNC. It happened in People's Partnership, NAR, the
Right.
previous PNM. It
Right.
happens in Trump government right now. It happens all over in Canada. It's the same damn thing. So I think that what we need to do then is, we need to do exactly what we say instead of kind of going around in circles.
I think
All right,
I think the one of the important term here for this is accountability, right? You can say I'm going to do a performance appraisal, but like you said, if the junior doctor is making coffee for me and covering for me, right, I would give him the best performance appraisal that I can give him to get it done. I need to be accountable for everything under my job description, as is the person beneath me. So I think accountability has to come from the top down, right? We're talking about all this stuff, but if no one's accountable or willing to do the job, then the person below us is not going to do it either, right?
Right. One of the things that I see that is very, very awkward, no? You place someone there who does not have experience, but the guy who has a, how you say that? I don't, your curriculum, you say in English, Spanish curriculum.
Curriculum, yeah.
Right. This guy is multifaceted. He knows about engineering and this, and then you tell him, look, you're too qualified for this work. I cannot give you that. That nonsense has to stop because look, I've been in 3 professions, right? And medicine is very, very, very hard, but I learned to manage in an oil company, right? I work in an oil company as an instrumentist and mechanic, and then I went up studying engineering and stuff like that. So I have my mind more open now in medicine, in building things, building and managing, right? So this we have to have persons who are qualified enough. All his qualification has to be placed together, because it's not the same that you speak to an engineer, he give you a result. You speak to a doctor, he give you a different result. You speak to a laborer, he give you a different results answer, right? So the next thing as well is the type of person, the dedication that you have to, the person has to have in doing his work, and then the following up, right? Here in Venezuela, it used to happen like this political party, you are my friend, and you get that position. That nonsense stop. It stopped. And what happened? We have increase in health system, increase in how you say traffic systems, infrastructure system have improved because we place the people in the correct position. Now, if you are caught sabotaging, you assume asumir la consecuencia.
You pay the consequence.
Yes, you pay the consequence if you are caught sabotaging, right? So this is what happened here. Nobody gets punished in the country, in Trinidad, for sabotaging or holding back a very important project.
It goes back to accountability, right?
Right,
If you are not meeting your goals, then you need to be held accountable. Period.
Right. Look at this hospital. I was very surprised that the whole back a hospital of being constructed, and the how you say pediatric hospital in Trinidad was stopped because of political party. That cannot be. That is project of improving the country, right? So when we have to change laws and stop being nice. Doc, you are a very nice person. Yes. But when I say something in the hospital, I am the director of the hospital. When I was the director, I say something, everybody run. I don't play with me, right? Of course, I do not abuse. I make the environment very nice, but no sabotage must be um, uh, accepted. Is the word. That is the big problem that is in Trinidad today, right? So oxygen, you don't have good service. You have the who really wants to work. You have them. How you say? Um, Wed up. Wed up is the word.
Fed up.
Tired. Yes, very tired. Don't have resources. Oh, a lot of things. So we have to give accountability on persons who are responsible for their projects, for the project, and have different coordinators, like how I'm not saying to copy Venezuela's style, right? In a project, you have coordinators of I say the word correct, no? Coordinators of emergency, coordinators of nurses, and then the sub coordinators. Everyone has their role to do, not to play, to do, and give me the percentage of all activities and account for resources, right? If there is failure to do so, you get out once. So we have to be a little drastic. And if we want to get things done, I'm not agree of being nice. I'm not agree of giving chances. If you want project to be executed, you have to do it, right?
And I think this is definitely in keeping with what I am saying in terms of
Yes.
having a good board, having a board, because in any way you look at it, as I said, in most countries of the world, right, globally, you have a board, and whether it's a private
Mm-hmm.
board or a public board, whatever it is, and the board are usually political appointments. In some other countries, they are political mixed with competent persons. In Trinidad and Tobago, it's mostly political. It's a culture. As I said, it's universal. So what we have, and Fazil, you talked about accountability. Accountability is inbuilt in proper management skills. So, for
Correct.
example, there are ways that you are able to discipline people. For
Mhm.
example, if you have your three letters that you get in terms of your red, yellow, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a grievance procedure and
Of
whatever.
course. Yeah.
You have to
Yep.
you have to fall
Absolutely.
under the Industrial Relations
Mm-hmm.
Act, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
in other words, then there's a process, and all of these things they get away with it in these political boards
They do.
because
They do.
the CEO and the managers are people who are their people. So
Listen.
when they
Yeah.
do that nonsense now, and they don't discipline properly down the line, because and the performance appraisal system in itself is a joke. In other words, then the whole thing falls
Right.
down. You see? So
Right.
all we are saying is that, listen, we cannot go and change our culture, right? We definitely can't do it before the next election. So we can't go and change our culture. So what
We
we're going
need
to
to
do,
try to, though. We need to
right?
try
Well,
to
you
move
see,
away from
part
it.
part of doing that, I would say, is having the necessary training, right? And
Yeah.
stand and getting the prime minister's blessing. That you're saying, well, look, we are not in, we definitely are going to look at the outcomes, but what we are definitely going to do is give value added to your top executive and enterprise level in government,
But
right?
Doc, I like to give the culture a shock.
Yes, and no, in so doing, you see,
So,
this
but
is
what
what
I'm saying to
happens,
you, like you said, we have to have the support from the boss lady,
right? And the thing
and
about it
we
is
have
that,
to clarify the position.
yeah.
What we attempting to
I,
do.
once you begin, I tell you, once you begin to stir the pot, right? Once you begin to stir the pot and add the little ingredients that will make the soup better, right? You will find that the dregs will fall to the bottom,
Yeah,
right?
well,
It is a
I am
it's
not
a
a very likable guy
it's
because
a it is an evidence based intervention. In other words, then the dregs settle to the bottom. It always does. So by putting a very universal and peer reviewed type of approach, right? One that has a consensus rather than an individual bias or any individual bias. We put a standardized teaching program, which is Harvard type programs in management, right? In what the boards are doing. We create
Case
a standard.
studies, case studies.
Right. We create a standard that could be measured by creating an awards criteria, etc. And that allows us to now to manage the managers, right? Once we can begin doing that, I am positive that you will see good results. And once you start to see good results, I think it will be a positive feedback. Of course, you're going to have some ups and downs. You're going to have individual issues. You're going to have people going to be giving us trouble. It's fine. It's fine. But as a team, rather than Gary, myself, or Sumant, or Fazia alone, or Varun, or Ved, or Dr. Maraj, or whoever it is, Tony, we definitely can't. It's not an individual position. It's not an individual program. It's a program by all of us, right? So I think this is a way forward. I feel that we can talk for eons here. And I mean, if we can keep saying the same thing and we are not going to be heard. So maybe let us do something now. Let us see what the results are. And then after that we can see what happens. Yeah?
Well, I believe I have some team members that are physically on the ground there, right? So, gentlemen, Dr. Ramroop, yourself, Suman is there. Let's see what we can do.
And,
I mean,
and Gary, this not to stop you, but this will incorporate, right, what we are doing in Toko Sangirani and Chaguanas and the other constituencies. Because what we are actually going to be doing is that we are going to be inculcating, right, within the boards, right, that spin-off will be managed interventions in these communities by the board members who are political appointees. So in a sense, when Togo Sangre Grande has issues in infrastructure, in drainage, if you know what I mean, right? There are certain boards like WASA, right? And certain boards in transport, right? Airports Authority, all of these different boards, right? This is where we can begin to put in necessary interventions and teachings that will allow positive spin-off effects in the constituencies of Toco Sangre Grande, all the marginal constituencies in the East West Corridor, even San Fernando West, which is very iffy, although we won it this time, it was really because PNM refused to come out and vote. So I think that we definitely would definitely have to focus on a lot of our marginal constituencies as we go forward. And part of that will be embedded in our training programs because Sumant, you know what I mean? We would have to encourage that focus by the board members. So as they sit down doing the deliberations, they must always keep in the back of their mind certain programming, right, that will be focused towards building more resiliency in those marginal constituencies. You know?
Fazia, you were saying something or no?
No, I was just gonna say, look, I forgot now. Sorry.
Okay, I know we kept you quite a
No,
bit.
I forgot. I was gonna say something about when I was at West Shore, and I was trying to implement. Okay, now I remember. When I was at West Shore for that 1 year as director of nursing, working with the medical director who really did not appreciate me being there. I brought a whole lot of different ideas when I came to work there at that time, and part of it was actually the performance appraisal process there, which West Shore did not have.
Well, you kind of ruffled their feathers, right?
Completely turned that place upside down, right? And I had a really bad response from the medical director. He didn't appreciate the fact that I was actually making things right. I was reaching out to the staff at the ground level, trying to change things at the actual ground level staff, like the porters, the nursing assistants, the charge nurses. They wanted change. They were actually very welcoming and receptive. However, the medical director, who were buddy friends with all the managers, teamed up to try to rebel against me so I wouldn't get my job done. And that was my experience in the healthcare system in Trinidad, which left a really bad taste in my mouth. So I had firsthand experience of what the backlash could be like and the in-your-face resistance from the medical director about effecting change. I was positive for that institution, And one of the things that I did that actually brought the team together was have huddles every single morning in the department, right?
Mhm.
Every morning, we'll have huddle for about 20 minutes, and invited all the managers from like the emerge manager, accident emerge manager, the OR, ICU, the medical surgical ward. All the managers came in the morning to contribute to the huddle. So when the medical director first came, he was like, "What is this? What are you doing?" I said, "We're having a huddle." And I explained to him what the huddle was about. It was a chance and a place to get people's opinions, hear their voices, hear their concerns, come up with solutions, update them on what's happening in the hospital, what's not happening, what's going good, what's going bad, and things to change, right? And for the most part, almost every single area contributed except him. He did not like it. Why? Because everything was being brought in the open. There was transparency. There was accountability. There were people speaking up about how they felt, which he never was able to do before. He did not appreciate because he was very old school. He didn't like that. He was like, rule with an iron fist, do what I do, not do what I say, and that kind of stuff. And I had a lot of backlash from him. And I suspect this is what we may encounter as well too when we try to do what we think
We
is right,
will. We will.
right?
We will. It's not we
And
may, we will.
and
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
that's very hard to deal with. I mean, I did deal with it until I left there, but it was just so raw and so blatant in your face that it's very difficult
Yeah.
to change it,
If
without
I may
being
butt
attacked.
in, that is very difficult for us because you were working individual at the hospital. In this case, I think like Dr. Ramu, myself, we are retired or soon to be retired.
Mm.
We don't care shit about anything. We will get pushback. I know that we're going to get pushback. 5 members of the board may be against you. What are you trying to teach us? Then blah blah blah. Well,
Yeah, they
like we
didn't
said,
appreciate new ideas, didn't appreciate the new way of doing things that actually brought
yeah,
change and what made the staff
listen,
happier.
yes, but
Management didn't like it. The staff was
yeah,
happier,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mind you, though, the
We,
CEO was very, very supportive, but the medical director, no, not a chance.
mhm.
He left, though,
we,
after I was there. He left.
we have to expect these things.
Yeah.
People
Uh,
will
most most of the
figure.
most of the medical directors, Fazia, in the last, I would say, 10, 15 years, right, has been just what I told you. You see, the same kind of guy, that's what happened. They each have they went up the system,
Mm-hmm.
right? They sat there for years, they
Yep.
sit in their private practices and they come out now. In the
Mm-hmm.
private sector, it would have been a little different. Obviously, he might have retired from maybe his public service and he came to work in the
Correct.
private
He did.
sector.
He retired after public
Right.
service, went there to
Right.
work,
So the same
Yeah,
the same bad habits he brought from there, he brought it
that's
into the
exactly what it
private sector.
was.
Right.
Exactly
And
what it was. Yeah.
he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
change his attitude because I know the guy and I tell you what, it's the same thing he did when he was in Port of Spain Hospital. It was the
Well, there
same
you
thing.
go. There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that it's not going to be, and this is why I'm saying, if you really think about it honestly, I have worked since 1984. Right, I was an intern in San Fernando Hospital, 84.
Wow.
And I left the government in 2011 to go to ODPM, right, out of the government practice. But of course, I maintain private practice even to now. I still practice in Trinidad. So the thing about it is that I know, and listen, you know what is happening now? I have a perspective that I have to share with you all. I am getting these attorneys, and there's a whole set of attorneys now that have actually saw whenever the economy goes down, right, lawsuits against the medical fraternity is very high. I am getting at least 2 to 3 cases of negligence coming before my desk in my office on a weekly basis from attorneys outside.
I'm
Mhm.
not
Right?
surprised. I am not
Yep.
surprised. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm
Last
not
week,
surprised.
I had 3 cases from RHA, South RHA alone, Southwest RHA. Right? And all of these cases, when I even do a preliminary forensic examination, they are valid cases. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, then I go and
Mm-hmm.
sit down and do a detailed analysis.
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying to say is that these are some of the strengths that we are proposing because the Prime Minister knows fully well, right, that negligence is a big problem because she said it in her platform in the work up to the election, and she did even say it that she will be looking at negligence, right, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
setting up a committee that deals with negligence within
Yeah.
the system,
That's
right?
very much needed. That's very
Good.
much needed. People
So I
need.
think that
Yeah.
because of that, when you look at quality the measurement of quality, right? Assurance in the health sector, one of the key sectors in quality control, right? Mechanisms. They have not implemented the ISO QMS. They have no quality, no universal quality management
No, there
system.
is zero. There is zero.
None. And not
It's
only that, the
zero.
ministry, right, and the RHAs are measuring their own quality, right? They do not, they have to, of course, for the strategic plan, but there is no
Mhm.
independent quality association or
To
body
measure
to
against. Yeah.
measure public sector and even private sector quality. You
Yeah.
see,
No, there's none.
so
I mean,
there's
look
none.
at, for instance, look at the example for when an autopsy has to be done. It has to be checked and rechecked, and you have to, I mean, and then you see it comes up with a different analysis of what really took place. So, I mean, we have seen that happen too many times where you don't even get a proper autopsy, and unless you have money or the
Yeah.
contacts to get this thing properly done,
Or to
you
pay for
know.
it privately. Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
So I
we
mean,
we
so the place is like I had a friend will say taboo, but
yeah
it's we have a lot to fix, and I keep saying we didn't go into government to maintain the status quo,
yeah correct
and we
correct.
have to shake things up.
Yeah, we have so much we can do. So much we can do. Look. We looked at the in medicine. We have the medical examiner system, which I'm sure that people you would know about. Parum in Venezuela, what you have? The coroner system, or is it a medical examiner system?
The
Well, we can't hear you.
Hey, your
We lost your mic
microphone
there,
is on.
Parum.
Yes.
Check your mic. Yeah,
Ah,
go ahead.
right. Repeat me the question there.
Do you have for criminal death so for death investigations? Do you have the coroner system, the CORONER system, or a medical examiner system?
Medical examine system, and that
Right, right.
handles only a special science police
Yes,
here. A
yes,
special science police. They have the how you say the authority and to be enclosed what is going on.
yes.
That is the medical doctors, the how you say
Pathologist. Yes, yeah,
Pathology.
pathologist.
yeah.
They are trained by the scientific police here. It's something
Yeah.
like the CIA or
Right.
something like that here, and
Yeah.
there is autonomy, absolute autonomy,
Like
and what they
CSI,
say.
CSI,
Yeah.
CSI.
C-
Yeah.
CSI.
Yeah. CSI.
I don't know
Crime
what
scene
is CSI.
investigations. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yes,
fine.
they
That's fine.
Crime
Yeah.
scene
they have that.
investigator. Yeah.
Right, they have that, and they are autonomous. What they say is the results. There is no playing with that.
Right.
And
So yeah.
the doctors, you do not know who to avoid how you say corruption or different results. The doctors, you don't know who's the doctor who will do the autopsy.
Right. Good.
Right.
So in Trinidad, for example, we have a coroner system, which is basically a magistrate or a legal person, right? And the actual persons the medical doctors who go to visit the scene of death, right? If it's going to be not a natural death, it will normally be what we call a district medical officer, which is like a old UK system where you have DMOs, they call them, district medical
Mm.
officers. A lot of these district medical officers have not been trained. They are just physicians who became doctors in the public service, and then after that they were assigned or they applied for these positions as district medical officers. Quite a lot of time, the police they did some training and whatever. They do some of the postmortems, but most of the postmortems are done in the National Forensic Science Center, and they have about three Indian pathologists that claim to be forensic pathologists, and that they are the ones that are doing the crime related pathology examinations in Trinidad and Tobago, right? And in the hospitals, the pathologists do, but they are not forensic pathologists, and sometimes they have to use the hospital pathologists. So we have in the United States and Canada, a lot of the provinces and states, they have coroner systems. Some of them have medical examiner systems. Some of them have a hybrid system, right? So there's a whole global, change and a sort of movement towards a more highly trained medical examiner system, right? Rather than an old time coroner system, because in some of the states in North America, for example, in the U.S., you have some states where their citizens, private citizens, are coroners, rather than persons who are trained in death investigation. So it's something that we have in Trinidad that needs a lot of training and a lot of input into that, because that alone is a big thing. We had 670 something deaths on average over the last 5 to 8 to 10 years. Very high amount of homicides and suicides, and some of the deaths are, we have bodies piling up in the forensic science center. Quite a lot of forensic autopsies that have not been done, and there's a big backlog in autopsies. People are waiting for their bodies now, sometimes a month or 2 months, and by the time they get the bodies, they have been decomposed, and sometimes they don't even know if it is their relative. So there are a lot of problems in Trinidad when it comes to that as well. So these are things that the government have been faced with over the last 10 years, and these are some of the things that we can help. Because I just came out of some discussions a couple of weeks ago with some persons who are private CSI centers in the U.S. and in India, and they are willing to come to Trinidad and assist the government as well through the Prime Minister Modi, who was here, as well as through the U.S. come into Trinidad and set up these private regional CSI centers. And a lot of the autopsies, a lot of persons who might have deaths, people just lingering in the National Forensic Science Center mortuary, waiting on autopsies, who have had an autopsy and needs a second or third opinion, right? Again, this can be done privately at a cost. You see. So there's technology now. It's like an MRI machine. You pass the body through it, and the MRI actually pretty much gives you an idea of what is happening. So even legislation might need to change. A lot of times, in criminal acts, you shoot a bullet, hits the brain or it hits the abdomen, and it causes hemorrhage. The cause of death, right, is hemorrhage due to the bullet, right, due to the gunshot wound. It's easy, but then you have to sit down and keep that body there for at least 2 or 3 weeks just to cut open the body, just to say exactly what I'm saying. And when it could be done by virtual means, it can be done by passing the person through an MRI machine, and that is happening
Mhm.
in a lot of European, Latin American, as well as North American countries right now. So the legislation has to accept the fact that a lot of those autopsies can be done by just passing the body through the machine, and then you give the cause of death, because that's what you need. I mean, a man gets point blank range by a 9 millimeter bullet in the brain. What else could cause it? What else? But you're taking a whole 2 or 3 weeks to get back that body. You understand what I'm saying? So there are certain technology issues that will have to change, some legislation that will have to change. And if if the United National Congress needs to make a difference, these are some of the things that all of that, the advisory team, good, can actually give them solutions, right? Little interventions that the PNM inserts in the ministries are not going to do, that they're going to sabotage them over the next 3 or 4 years by not getting them some of these ideas that we're going to be giving them.
Robert Trey. Doc, a couple of years ago, we had a situation where a guy who's an alcoholic, his mother left him at the Sandy Grande Hospital, and she went to get some food and stuff to come back, and he disappeared. And they found him in the Manzanilla Beach on the sand with a laceration to the head, and they were moving the body back and forth from Port of Spain to Arima, back and forth. Who's going to do the autopsy? And then they finally decide that the guy drowned. So he drowned on the sand, right? He drowned on the sand, and they certify that. So right. So this is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing that we dealt with. I mean, we know the guy was an alcoholic, but he disappeared. He's sitting on a chair in the Sandy Grande Hospital. Nobody know how he disappeared there while the mother went home because she was trying to get him back into a program. And, she took him to the hospital there. And the guy disappeared. And then they found him on Manzanilla Beach with laceration on his head, right? and they declare that he drowned. So this is what we're dealing with. The place is so corrupted,
Yeah, yeah, even that is a big problem. I mean, Fazia, I'm sure you, as a nurse, you would understand, and even Sumant, when it comes to coding. I mean, I'm sure that Parun will know as well as a physician that when you sign a death certificate, there's an international ICD code, ICD-10 code, right? That has to be applied. In other words, and the cause of death is very specific,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people mix up, like for example, in the example I just gave you, the cause of death was gunshot injury. The mechanism of that, would have been, really the hemorrhage, which would have led to, a coma, right, which would have caused the death, right? And so there's one or two. There, in most death certificates, you'll have the hemorrhage would cause, herniation of the brain, and the anoxia, which would lead to death, right? But that's the mechanism. The cause was a gunshot, and the manner of death would have been either homicide or suicide or accidental, if you know what I mean. So the manner of death is different. The cause of death is different, and the mechanism of death, right? And this is very important in doing a death certificate, as doctors should know, and some of the nurses will be involved in that as well. So when you look at doctors coding, for example, what happened in COVID, for example, what Gary's talking about, in these things, and some senior doctor who is the head pathologist or the head the medical director, whatever, they are going through these death certifications, right? Or when you do an audit, a clinical audit in the pathology department, and you audit what your junior doctors are doing or your junior pathologists, you would pick up this nonsense, right? And you have what is called garbage codes. And the incidence of garbage codes is pretty high in Trinidad and Tobago and a lot of other countries, but the statistics show that we are much higher than some of the other countries,
See,
right?
that shouldn't be high, right? That shouldn't be high. If
And
people
this
do
is,
their
yes,
jobs, it shouldn't be high.
because it gives you the wrong mortality and mortality data, and
Correct.
basically when you're looking at things like maternal mortality, chronic disease mortality, right, what is causing the heart attack and all this sort of thing, it gives you, in other words, and your whole manifesto goes in a craziness, because your trending is you're not able to determine your trends, and if you can't determine your trends, you can't develop a policy. And if you don't believe, if you can't develop a policy, you're gonna get haywire healthcare, and you're gonna be spinning top in mud.
Yeah,
See,
buying the wrong medication.
correct.
You started
So
procuring wrong medication.
it's everything has to be done, and this is where you really need the managers. You need each one of the heads of the departments to be taught managerial skills. You need to be able to them to do their little audits and report on the audits. The key to any functioning institution is incidents, right? Incidents that occur. And if you don't have a proper incident reporting system, if people don't report things, how the hell do you know? So when something really happened, all you're really doing is outing fires, because you're not picking up, right? You know what I'm talking about. You're not picking up you're only getting the tip of the iceberg. You're not getting the majority of incidents that are occurring, which you are able to trend. You see? So when something happens and it hits the newspaper, now the CEO gets in contact with the nurse and the head of department, and hey, we have this death and so and so, and it's in the news and whatever. This time the system has been bad from before, and what you really now pick up is the tip of the iceberg. You see? So building an institution that monitors itself and measures itself and reports on itself, and having an independent quality association that actually looks out from outside in, you know what I mean? Putting
Yeah.
in protocols, from ISO or any one of the international quality management systems embedded into your institution. These are some of the things that have not been done.
That's
We
a whole new health system you're talking about,
and this
man.
is what we are trying to say. And the boards who are going in, they're not even speaking the language that you and I are
No,
speaking
no,
in.
No,
no,
they're
no.
not, because they,
They
they
won't.
just don't know. They just
No,
don't
they
know.
go to a board meeting,
Yeah.
right? When the month comes, they're gonna sit down there, because this is a big thing. They're walking on through the
Yeah.
hospital, and they have this jacket, and they are board members, right? Some of them have served in the health sector before for years and they didn't do anything and they don't even speak this language, right? So they will go into private practice and they will sit down and do anesthesia or whatever it is and come back and they worked for years in the hospital. They graduate and now they're back on the board because, you know, they have been big doctors in the past. You understand? So this is where we are. And this language that we're speaking is not getting embedded in the health sector. So how could you achieve your manifesto, Suman? How can you achieve it?
Listen, as we always say, Doc, we only have 3 years to implement. Years 2, 3, and 4. Now, we have 15 growth poles which UNC has established. That is their manifesto. This is what we're going to achieve during our term. Year 1 is already halfway done. Ministers have their allocation, but they're proceeding with their normal business. Nothing is to be implemented as yet in the first year. Nothing. They can't do. They're just cleaning house, fixing up the cobweb and so on. Then you're starting to get pushback from your senior advisors, PSAs, technical guys, what have you. By the time you think they're going to help you, they put in roadblocks into every time you make 2 steps forward, they're going back 1 step backward.
They
So
sabotage it.
at
They
the
sabotage.
end, then you're not going to get nothing achieved, substantial that is. So how are we going to achieve these 15 growth poles, which you as a party said you're going to achieve? And I think that is really what, at least in my opinion, should be one of our key drivers to sell our project or sell our team, so to speak. We wanted to be in office for the next, not only this 5 year, but the next 5 years.
Yes.
What do you have to do? You start to work backwards. How are you going to achieve this growth pole right now, or these 15 growth poles during this term? I read in the newspaper today, one of the ministers in labor said, our next drive is to employ 50,000 people. Now I say, what kind of BS is this? These people who are going to employ, are they going to help you achieve your deliverables, meaning the 50 growth poles, or are they going to be junior level staff that do not have one say into any of these big projects? So on one hand, you created employment, yes, which you said you were going to do. But how are they, or these people, the caliber of labor you're going to get from these people, are they able to implement your 15 growth poles, which will help you win the next election?
That's a golden question there, Suman. Golden question.
That is the problem. You're not employing the people that will help you achieve what you said you were going to do. And this is why I think our group, when we started with the think tank, we said we should be a think tank to help the government, which from early days on. In fact, I think it was before the election we said that. Because I had the experience in 1986 to 2000, whenever change hand from another party to PNM, or whenever party changed from PNM to another party, like in 1986, 1995, 2010, and you see a pattern again cropping up again for the 4th time. The same thing is happening. So if we don't learn from our mistakes over the past 3 terms of, say, so-called UNC peer partnership or whatever we have, Mr. Pandey time, then we just going around in circles. We only hoping to be there for a 5-year term, nothing else.
We're no further ahead.
So we have to sell, I think, our team, our advisory team, that, listen, we're trying to help you guys win in the next election.
Yeah.
How can we achieve that? What is it you need? and we're telling you what you need to do, upgrade the quality of the staff and all the board of directors, local government councillors and so on, the statutory boards and what have you. And, we're willing to look at your dashboard, at least the PM dashboard, and say at any given point in time, you can tell what's happening, man, on the ground.
I think overall, Sumant, in every single ministry, every sector, we just have to raise the standard of care, raise the standard of accountability, and raise the standard of what our expectations are.
That's
Because
one thing I see. What happens, Pastor? All the systems in these ministries have been broken down.
Yep.
In my opinion, this was deliberately done so that there will be no accountability.
Yeah.
PNM designed it this way.
It worked.
Basically to steal and do what the hell they want to do.
Yep, that's what they did, and it worked.
Deliberately broken down.
Mm-hmm.
None of the things function. I mean,
nothing.
You're going to get a passport. There's no passport office in Santander right now.
The country's completely, they left it desolate when they left office. Desolate.
It's broken down for good reasons so that it can steal. That's why they have the internal auditors were showing those $2.6 billion. Where is that? No one is talking about these things.
But I think if people don't care enough.
Well, we need to do a show with Vade on that $3 billion that disappeared, unaccounted for, and we're still waiting on Ken Ali for the 1.4 billion that was just before election.
Yes.
All right. So this is something that's still on the agenda. I haven't forgotten. I'm just waiting for the availability of Vade and Ken. That we could get this going, because we need to stay in the faces of this government and this former government and this party there.
Correct. But you see now, these new ministers, remember how much new and young ministers they are right now. Next month they're going to get the allocation. They're going to allocate for the various ministries. They're going to forget everything that's gone by. They're going to consider it now. Hey, I got X amount of dollars. I need to spend this money out. I have basically 2.5 quarters, because again, in your fourth quarter, you don't spend, they don't approve no big set of money. So you have to spend your allocation for your ministry. Let's say by June next year, you got to spend it. So you look at that time window you have. Basically, November comes Christmas, you basically have 6 months, 6.5 months to spend your allocation. No, you think where you're going to get time to go back to investigate all this high level of corruption that has taken place. You don't have the time. Physically, you don't have the time, because you're now concerned with spending the money which I've been allocated with. And the general rule is that you as a ministry, hey, if you did not spend your money this year, then next year you in serious problems, because
you get less. You get less.
We'll give it to the guy who spent the money. So if Ministry of Housing spend out all their money, that's considered good. It's considered good. You as Ministry of Social Services, of Social Security, or whatever,
Social Development and Family Services.
Yeah, and Family Service, sorry. So money is withdrawn from you. This is the way government accounting works. They typically just do a 10% of last year's figure and then this year's figure. That's it. That's government budgeting for you.
Right.
That just sounds so wrong side.
Listen, because I've worked in the system long enough to know.
I have. It just sounds so wrong, so counterproductive. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Yet at the bottom line, at hospitals, they're trying to cut as much as they can to reserve money so they get more funding. Right? They're always cutting frontline staff, cutting this to
Mhm.
have a positive balance every end of the year so they can get more funding.
Yes.
The government
Yes.
does the opposite.
Yeah.
That doesn't make
So
sense.
what I'm saying, these ministers are going to be so preoccupied in trying to
Yes.
spend the allocation for the next
Yeah.
year, which is really 2.5 quarters. You have to
It's
start
focusing
spending because
leadership.
in the last,
So we have a situation here in Jamaica,
yeah,
where it's a drastic situation. That we need to see how best we can assist. And there is an account number that was posted by the Minister of Local Government that I have been sharing on the screen here.
yeah, I saw it.
Um, and I want to encourage everyone to donate as much as they can. I'm not sure what's the process for overseas. If you want to wire the money, I guess you can wire the money to the TT account. I have not set up anything at this stage in doing any kind of GoFundMe or anything like that. I haven't gotten involved in that, and I don't think at this point I will. But so I would like to encourage you to support this account here that is based in Trinidad, that's trying to assist the people in Jamaica who has been devastated by this hurricane. I'm sure they're going to need medical experts to probably fly in there too, because I've seen the hospital. I think it's pretty much devastated. I've seen some pictures of the hospital that seems to be devastated. Let me see if I can pull it up. Could imagine being in that situation. I guess it's so we're definitely going to need to give them some assistance, some drastic help. So anything that you can do, please do.
Yeah, Gary, I went through Hurricane Andrew in 1994 in Miami, and I was on the beach, and it was so drastic that the NOAA, the National Oceanic, who monitors the hurricane, that building was blown up in Miami Beach. That building got blown up, and they supposed to be the one who is monitoring. I mean, that's the monitoring agency, NOAA.
Yeah. Dr. Ramov, I think you mentioned you had some contacts in Jamaica, right?
Yeah. We are actually, you see, I'm a Rotarian.
Yeah, right. You want to share a little bit about that?
All right.
What you do?
Basically, what it is, right, is that you have Rotary International is an international professional association of business and professional men and women. We are about 1.4 million people all over the world. I'm sure you have heard about the local Rotary Club. Basically, we have different districts. We have 550 governors who command a district. There are 550 districts. The Jamaica is in what we call District 7020. We are in District 7030, which starts from Antigua in the north, goes to French Guiana in the east, and Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao in the west, right? Including Guyana, British Guyana, French Guyana, and Dutch Guyana, which is Suriname, right? So basically, those are the countries. I was governor of all the countries in 2012, 2013. I served as governor amongst the other 549 governors of the world, right? So we maintain very close relationships in governors, so that right now, as governors who served as governors, what we call them past district governors, PDGs, right? And we have a current governor who is based in St. Lucia. So what happens is that the governor who is in St. Lucia of District 7030 is connecting with the governor, right, who is in 7020, which is based in Jamaica, actually. He's the governor in Jamaica right now. It so happened that he is in Jamaica, but there are other countries like Bahamas and whatever that is in 70-20, right? But this year, the governor so happens to be in Jamaica. So right through the whole conversations of Melissa, that governor was speaking to Soraya, who is our governor now, and we have what is called a council of governors, where all the past governors who served, who are alive, we have this WhatsApp chat and we communicate with each other. We have meetings regularly, physically and virtually. So we have been able to connect all the past governors. I am currently the governor, the past governor, that is in charge of disaster preparedness and mitigation. We have another governor who is in charge of this disaster response. His name is David Edwards out of Barbados. So up till midnight last night, David Edwards, who is the district governor that is in charge of response, I am in charge of mitigation and preparedness disaster, right? So what it is, both of us, and we have had meetings with the governor in Jamaica. He has satellite phones, all right, because all the governors in the region, we are given satellite phones once we serve as governors, right, because of disasters within the region. So he has been able to connect with us, right, and basically we have an ongoing situation. The science of disaster risk management or disaster preparedness is that we don't recommend sending items to a country. This is a political thing. It's not a real charitable humanitarian requirement of United Nations. They always recommend that you send money. The reason being is that the evidence has shown that if you don't send money, what happens is you get a lot of material. People dump, for example, this morning when the minister put up the fact that people we are opening up all the 14 municipalities and we're going to be collecting items of donation. That's a dangerous thing because what happens, people start to send, their old backhoes and their old the wheelbarrows and the old clothes and the old shoes and the old underwear, and you have a big problem where you have a lot of people dump goods into these disaster things, and the corporation we had that problem before in Trinidad. I was head
And
of
then you have to deal with
the
the warehousing
and
and
then
the
you have to deal
storage
with the and you have
and
to throw
labor.
away. We
Yeah.
had to burn millions of items because of that nonsense, right? So we recommended that you send cash first because in the first instance, right, if you look at the what happened in Jamaica, you have to look at the situation. Good. The eastern part of the country, and they will be probably opening up the Kingston. I heard the Minister of Transport say they're going to be opening up the international airport, hopefully by tonight when he gets his report. So by tomorrow, relief planes can start coming in. It means that the eastern part of the country has been spared a bit. So they're going to be able to collect items. So when you have a country that has hardwares, mattress is being sold, right? Water has been manufactured, whatever. You don't send a lot of those items because you want the country to spend the money to buy back those things so that the economy can start spinning. Once you start sending a lot of stuff within that country, then the people who are selling the hardboards and the steel and the cement and everything else, they are not going to sell. Why would you go and buy hardboard and materials and groceries from a grocery there when you're getting it free? So you have to be careful. So that is why we ask, and this is why I'm very happy that the minister has gone the way of the money. Good. Send the money as much as possible. That will go a long way. Now, what we in Rotary prefer is that because we have Rotary clubs in Jamaica who are in connection, who are connected to their other Rotary clubs, these are business and professional men and women. They're not thieves. They don't thief money. Rotary International has a very good track record with the IRS, right? With in the United States, we're a very credible organization, and we're about the second charitable organization that don't embezzle funds, collects money forward. If you just do a Google, you'll see. So the point about it is that we know that the humanitarian goods and services will reach the people who deserve it. What we find in political situations in Rotary, we find that when you start sending money politically, right, the people who are within a certain party, right, gets the goods before the other people. Now, we're not saying that's going to happen, but that's what usually happens is that your partisan persons, the people who voted for you or whatever, they get help first. So you have a bit of inequity. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. What I'm saying is that money will go a long way. So if it is being sent through a government basis, it's fine. But I
And
am giving
it's much more manageable. It's much quicker.
right.
And Doc,
And
I would like you
and the
to arrange if
economy.
we could get some
That's correct.
interviews with them.
The
You know, if you
the
could get them to come
economy.
online,
That's
we could
correct.
set up
The
something
I will
tomorrow.
try. I will try and get some of my people there. So the economy itself will actually prosper and will be when they have needs and they say, okay, we need extra body bags, we need extra, money, we need extra doctors, we need extra things. Then they will ask for it, right? The government platform will say, okay, we need this and we need this, and then we will send that. By that time, the ports will be open. We'll be able to get our ships in so that when they have specific needs, they will have specific requests, right? But right now, in this first 3 to 4 days, money is the best thing to send right now because it will go a long way in getting the economy, getting back the systems up and running. That's the science of disaster management. That is my recommendation. We in Rotary tend to send our money to the Rotary. I have already sent my money to the Rotary Club of Jamaica, right? That is the Kingston. The governor already is in receipt of 10,000 US dollars already from Rotary clubs in Trinidad, right? Next, I think tomorrow we have another 80,000 US we have collected up to this morning. And that 80,000 US is going to them again in the morning. So far, we have sent 95,000 US dollars by tomorrow afternoon, right? And that is how the Rotary clubs, and this is only coming from Trinidad, 24 clubs in Trinidad, and we have 150 clubs throughout the Caribbean, right? And those clubs would be, I think last time we would have given millions of dollars. So to Bahamas. So this is how we're sending Gary, and we know for a fact that once it reaches there, the people who all the community in a non-partisan, very equitable way will get humanitarian support, and we feel comfortable with our Rotarian brethren who will be delivering those aid to the people, right?
Doc, hello,
Yeah,
Doc.
yeah.
Can I send my bank account?
Sorry.
Can I send my bank account?
What do you mean?
For
No, I
he wants donations.
Oh, the
okay.
well,
Well,
it has to be a Rotary international thing
yeah,
in the
yeah,
area. But I understand what you're saying. It's
yes.
not as easy as that because we already have this system. It's not just for this disaster. We have had the Bahamas recently. We have had the Antigua. So this is something we're doing almost every year, and it happens twice or 3 times a year.
Mm,
Yeah, it's a
okay.
system.
So Doc, see if we
Yeah,
could get them. I'd like to give them the airtime as much as they need,
yeah.
to say what's going on over there.
Sure,
Right.
sure. I will. I will. I mean, as I said, we are right now. We have people on the ground. Just up to about 15 minutes ago on the WhatsApp chat, we got about 16 Rotarians. We got the military to help them to move some of the in Blackwater. There's some lot of problems. They found three bodies about half an hour ago in one of the houses there. They had refused to evacuate. So it was a sad thing where we found two, a parent and a child. So again, there are people that they're finding now who decided to stay and their houses collapsed on them. So right now, there's a lot of search and rescue going on, and a lot of people are clearing rubble from the streets and galvanized sheetings and all this sort of thing in their little communities. There are a lot of first aid. A lot of communities are coming together because the national aid cannot go to everyone, and this is a period of time within the first 24 to 48 hours when pretty much a lot of villages will have to see about themselves before anything reaches to them because not all the routes are accessible. So a lot of people are just fending for themselves in St. Elizabeth, Blackwater, some of the parishes. And, right now, for a fact, even the Rotarians can't meet some of them. But what happened is that I know that this morning, about 4 o'clock this evening, there were some helicopter drops of some water and some MREs, meals ready to eat, as know it. And they have been dropping it close to some of the churches and some of the other schools in the area. And of course, well, the shelters are pretty much supported because out of the 4,000 shelters that they said that they only had about 4,000 people in all the shelters. So a lot of people did not go to the shelters. A lot of them were pretty much not non. They didn't. People just didn't go to the shelters, and that is probably some of the problems they're having right now with the deaths. So um,
But
I will.
eventually they're going to need medical staff, right?
Well,
Right?
the thing about Jamaica, I mean, this is a very nasty earthquake and sorry, hurricane. And what's happening is that they have the medical school. They have about right now they have 5 classes of medical students, as well as doctors. They have quite a lot of doctors in Jamaica. The problem is now is more the infrastructure, because a lot of the infrastructure has damaged. So what we will need is more labor. What they will need is more uh, manpower to get some of the equipment. They will need temporary housing and places to make into these provisional hospitals, such as churches and schools. Once they get people to move the beds and whatever into it, they'll have to get mattresses. They'll have to get more technicians, laboratory technicians, IT technicians, hospital technicians, equipment technicians, because a lot of the
Did,
equipment has been damaged, waterlogged. So again, it's not so much doctors they would probably need, it's more technical and engineering and management and labor, a lot of labor right now.
And military protection.
Well, military protection is definite because there is a culture in Jamaica, in particular. There's a lot of looting that has already occurred in Kingston and some of the other areas that they're not reporting. But some of my friends did send some pictures to me. I have 2 of my alma mater colleagues from Presentation College San Fernando. They are there right now in Jamaica. They were doing some consultancy when the storm hit. They couldn't leave, and they are with their families. So they have been sending me some of those raw photos of some of the nonsense that has been going on. Like anything else, but it's not as much right now because a lot of people right now are fending for themselves. As soon as they settle down with that element of society will begin to act. And of course, as you correctly say, Parun, you would need to have that military presence. Right now, as a matter of fact, I have a lot of, because of my past relationship with the ODPM as a CEO, I developed a lot of contacts in Cuba. And right now, because of the Cuban system of governance, you're not hearing much about Cuba. You're not seeing much about Cuba, but they have a very organized system of disaster risk readiness in Cuba. I mean, they even came and trained us in Trinidad, right? In terms of some of the things that we could implement in Trinidad, and it's a pretty resilient nation, Cuba, when it comes to disasters. So we are waiting to see what will happen with them compared to Jamaica. You know.
Well, here in Venezuela, when that happens, those natural disaster happens in 2002, happened a natural disaster in La Guaira, where there was flood in La Guaira, a very high, very powerful flood. The military we had was to take position in everything that they do with the President Chavez, no, and the delinquent crime rate was very high in that moment as well. So it was necessary the military intervention and to control. Some time ago this year, they had flooding in Kumanakoa. That's a place here where close where I am here. It's about 4 hours driving. Had the same natural disaster with flooding, and the military wise, everything was controlled with distribution of logistic. You say logistic.
Yeah, logistically.
Logistics for the people are very well organized, and that that mechanism, I think all governments should have that ability
But you know,
how you say, in not depending on outside help.
yeah.
You see.
But you see, one of the problems that we have with the types of governance is that I mean, when you look at I mean, I don't know if you ever been to Chile. When you look at the Chilean response to earthquakes, compared to some of the other Latin American countries, you look at Cuba. That system of governance, it's different to what would happen. I mean, Sumant, you have been in Florida. They have been given. A lot of people have been given evacuation orders, but
Hmm.
it's never mandatory, and it's never military backed in the sense that you have to go or else, or you'll be arrested and put in jail. Which this is a problem because and eventually you'll find that a culture begins when it becomes a more socialist type activity compared to like what would happen in the U.S., Florida, what will happen in Jamaica. I mean, people were offered evacuation if it was a military type activity, right?
Mhm.
Where you don't have a choice. You get your ass out, otherwise, or else. This is Cuba. I'm not sure if it's in Venezuela, but it's in Chile, because in Chile, when you have and when they say you have to evacuate, you gotta evacuate, and they have been doing it very efficiently in the past. I've been actually there during one of the exercises. When they had a massive earthquake, a lot of people, had to leave the place, and they had to do it. You can't tell a Trinidadian to leave his home in Woodland or in the back of Mbacade or anything because of a flooding. They're not going to do it. And they didn't do it in Jamaica. And this is why you're going to have more mortality, because the system of governance is different. And I think, I mean, when we heard Jamaica was talking about mandatory evacuations, it would not be the same as mandatory evacuations in Cuba and Chile. I mean, I guess so in Venezuela, because when the military comes down in a village and they say you ought to get your ass out, you pack
Mhm.
your bags and you go on the bus. But
On
in
You
in
don't
in
get time to pack your bag.
in Florida, they're not going to do that, and this is why we lost
no
lives in the
way.
Everglades in the last one. This is why you had a whole old people's home that was severely damaged, and there's a lot of lawsuits against that because they should have been evacuated, and they chose to stay. You see, so
It was a
yeah,
mobile home village.
yes.
You see,
So
why these people would not leave as well? They are so tied up to their lands or their house and thing. When they go, they say, "Well, you evacuate. When I come back, everything is
everything
stolen."
gone. Yes,
Yeah,
and I think
that's
this
one
is
of the reasons.
Hmm.
this is the problem that we have had in developing disaster risk reduction
Mhm.
plans. For example, when we talked about Trinidad and Tobago, right, and I was part of the program where we were looking at the evacuation and egress of Port of Spain in the event of a, let's say, an earthquake, for example, right, and creation of shelters. If you remove some of those residential people in some of the areas and you bring them into shelters where you have some of the areas that are known for criminal activity, you're not going to put the people that you evacuate from the criminal areas into some of the other shelters. So sheltering is a problem, right? The other thing, like things in Barapo and Rio Claro and all of these places in Mayaro where they have flooding and you have to evacuate, and people in Kunaham where we had some very bad floodings. I remember when I was in ODPM, and the river, the surges were so high that water came in as far as, all where they were planting their watermelons or whatever. We had people marooned, and they didn't leave because of pretty larceny, right? Because of people stealing their vegetables and their fruits, and because of the criminal activity where people were right now, with home invasions and people stealing whatever. People are not going to leave their homes. You see, so if you really have a hurricane or a massive earthquake in the next 5 minutes, like like what Jamaica had, a catastrophic hazard, it will quickly become a disaster, because the reason for that is because a lot of people would not leave their homes. I mean, sometimes I wish we had a government like Cuba or maybe Venezuela or Chile, where once the military comes down and they say get out, you ought to get out. You see, and very few people will remain, because what happens is it puts less burden on your first responders. Quite a lot of times, your first responders die trying to save people who decide to stay
Mhm.
back. You see, I mean, so one of the problems is that you put your first responder at risk, because you now have a village that has 100 people and only 2 people went on the bus to go to the shelter. It means that you have to worry about 98 people. You
No,
see?
I don't worry about them. I leave them.
Well, you see, this is the difference in governance, and I think that this is where when we create and when we hopefully review our legislation in Trinidad and Tobago within the next few months, hopefully in the ODPM, that we have to really look at these things. In fact, one of the big problems we have in Trinidad, Perun, is that we have one of the most archaic customs legislation in the world. Good. And the reason for that is that when we tried during my 5 years of ODPM there, when I tried to tell them these are some of the things that need changing, in the event of a massive catastrophic emergency, right? Customs have to actually inspect everything that is coming in. There is no legislation that allows Peting to just come in lock, stock, and barrel in your country unless it's illegal. And because of the very stringent legal system, it inhibits humanitarian aid from coming into a country unless you have some drastic declaration, by the president of the country or the prime minister that says, okay, listen, we're going to allow everything to come in without any customs, and that will be one big problem. So they must have
Mhm.
they must have legislation that allows humanitarian aid to come in times of a need in these small island states like us, very vulnerable states. You, Venezuela, you have a lot of capacity. You can go inland, you can move around, but we don't. We don't. We have water all around, and we are small islands. So a lot of the risk management embedded in our legislation has to take into account like Ken was talking about the 1,000 year, 500 year, 100 year storm, or even the massive earthquake which we overdue for now. You know, so it is a very complex situation. But one of the problems is that if you have these frequent what we say hazards like flooding, where certain communities, when you have very bad weather and coming, like these ITCZ bans and these climate change, really nasty water coming in, you can actually do these practice evacuations and show people the benefit of going into shelters and bringing in the military, right, to supervise and remain and have a look at the homes, in safe areas, so that you can have a military presence to protect the vulnerable assets, that these people would leave their homes and they will see, okay, the military is here, they're going to watch and prevent pretty larceny or crooks from coming in and taking everything I own. Now, if that kind of trust is inbuilt, you'll find that one year, one flooding, you'll have 100 people, staying back. The next one you'll have 20 people, going. The next one you'll have 50 people going, because people will come back and say, "Boy, it was good. I went, I had good food, I had good security. I was able to go by my relative instead of going to a shelter. I went, they took me to them, they took everything, my food, everything, and the CPEP and URP and soldiers and volunteers came and washed down my home after all the mud and everything. It was removed. They gave me new mattresses and everything, and they brought me back in the house, and it was like brand new." And they would say, it was real good. I lost nothing. So as they keep telling those people, after years, people will build a confidence. So when they say evacuate, they're gone. Now these things take time. It's building a culture of resiliency, right? This is what Japan is good at. It took many years for the people to trust the government, no matter which government came into power, because the legislation is there. You see. So although we might not be a socialist type government where we have to do what the military says, we have a more different style of government. It just means that you'll have to show people the benefit of leaving their homes, and that is education, that is drills, that is practice, that is culture building. It takes years. And the problem is that we started it under the People's Partnership government in Trinidad in 2011. When we left in 2016, all things, like Suman says, everything fall down, everything fall down. They didn't continue this type of things, you know.
And that's why we need to keep PNM out of government. And that's why we need to make sure that this time around our government succeeds. You know, so gentlemen, yes, and lady, we definitely have to really push it ahead to make sure that what we're saying gets heard.
I want
You
to
know.
give you an example before we go, Gary, and everybody's tired. But I had the opportunity during my term in ODPM to visit the Philippines, right? And we had a disaster there. I don't know if you remember. They had a very very bad hurricane that affected the Philippines. And what had happened there at the time is that the prime minister, the leader of Philippines, right, the president or prime minister or whatever, he said, came out in the press, and he said, when we walked through there and we saw the amount of dead bodies that were on the ground, right? I mean, I went with clothes, right, and walking there amongst the dead bodies that were there, it was so much that I had to throw away all my clothes when I stopped. I had transit. I had to throw away all because I was my clothes was smelling in the suitcase, right, where the liquids went into some of the pans and whatever. And although I washed it before I came on, that smell remained on me of dead for weeks, right? And what had happened is that the style of governance was that they chose, right, to have the people who are managing disasters. They had like what we are doing here in Trinidad right now. They're putting it under local government, right? So local government responds, and there is a need for them, of course. But what happened is that they cannot manage the coordination of a disaster in the country, right? And this is what happened because they decentralized the management of the disasters. The people who were supposed to manage it on a country level, right? They were not there. They were caught up in their own mix. All doctors, nurses, everybody was managing the hospital. They were in the floods, right? They had lost people. So the whole thing fell down, and they had to ask on CNN. If you go back and you look at the clip, he said that is a mistake they made. Right? They removed the organization like what ODPM is or NEMA or FEMA. They removed that, and they decentralized it within the local government municipality, and that was their failure. They were not able to take control and coordinate the help, right? And a lot of the people who were affected were the people who were supposed to be running the command centers and doing the search and rescue and working in the hospitals, and this was a big thing. The man cried, you see. So it is something that we have to learn. There's a right way to do things. It is backed up by science, and I think Samant, this is what Fazia, Dr. Maraj, this is one of the problems that we are hoping to address. Right? If we stick to the science and we stick to the evidence based on past disasters, based on common contemporary healthcare management post COVID era, right? Based on the age of machines and man, that is the fourth industrial age, right? With the technology of AI and whatever. If we can if we can understand the difference between governance and style of governance, for example, comparing Cuba and Chile and maybe Venezuela in terms of disaster management to what we did in Florida and what has happened in Jamaica and the Bahamas, where people have a choice to evacuate, etc., because they have no trust in the law enforcement agencies to protect their homes when they leave the homes because of a culture of crime within the community like we have now in Trinidad. It means that we have to redesign our toolkits. We have to give communities these resilient toolkits. And the toolkits have to come from people who are qualified to do so. Right? This is where we are. And this is how we have to adapt to the thinking, and we have to adjust to the thinking as we go on. It's not something that is in concrete. It changes. It's dynamic, right? And we can do it because there are solutions to this. It's just that we have to encourage people to understand the solutions, right? And we are stuck with the fact that there's politics in everything, partisan politics included. I'm not just talking about the other types of politics. I'm talking about partisan politics as well, right? And that is something that we have to accommodate in our planning going forward. So, I mean, I spoke a lot about it, but disaster management is, I'm very passionate about it because we can save lives if we just do the right thing, you know, just doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's about it, Doc. Doc, if you can send me a little one paragraph on the focus of our group. I have some ideas. I could blend that in, and I could probably do some work this weekend on it. Next week I'm busy for
Yeah,
next weekend, but
yeah,
I could start
yeah.
something and basically what the group intends to do, what the main goal is,
Yeah,
and how we can assist.
sure. I would
Maybe-
frame up something and send it to you. You can always send it to the group. I'll send it
Yeah,
to
but
Gary as well. But you wanna, I'll send it to you, and we'll definitely
yeah,
move
just
forward.
if you do that anytime soon, I can do it this weekend a lot this weekend. But next week we have a cancer fundraiser at home here.
Yeah, and Fazia, I
So
guess you could definitely. I mean, you definitely can add to it because
Yeah, absolutely.
yes. So that will help because
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
I am
well, we'll send it to each member after we do it.
yeah.
Let them add a piece, whatever, add,
Mhm.
subtract, do some
Yeah.
Zoom and see how it is. And if we really hitting the nail on the head or we just more like a splinter, we don't want
Yeah.
to be like that.
I
So,
think it'll be just very generalized, but to the point. It won't have any details. So, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
once,
The details can come after, you
yeah,
know.
details will
Yep.
come after. It'll just be
All
more
right.
generalized and
All right.
broad terms. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Yes.
I think the key to it is that really and truly, it's really what we have is a universal business toolkit, right? We
Yeah, pretty much.
basically it's implementing a business process in any organization, in any
Yeah.
entity, and I
Well,
think that's
Mhm.
it. That's
that
what
is
it
what
is.
that is what the
Yeah,
understanding I thought when I
Yeah.
said
yeah,
when we had
yeah,
talked about it earlier, you
yeah.
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So once and
Correct.
it's a very simple thing, and the toolkits doesn't have to be going against the beliefs and wishes of the ministers or the boards and on the board members. It's saying, listen, there's a universal toolkit that can be applied into your entity, into your institution, into your deliverables, blah blah. We're not getting involved in that. But what we're doing is we want to try to take. So that's the focus of where we're going. I'll put a few things in as Samantha as you indicate, and we send it to you
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you could always fresh it up, send it up to everybody,
Yeah.
and we come to one sort of consensus. We never would have one, obviously. We are different people with
Correct.
different
Correct.
mindsets,
But
but at least we'd have an idea of where we are going. And once we have that, I think that we can send it to the boss, and then she can
Mhm.
definitely once we get it sanctioned by her, I don't think that we would have too much problems in going forward.
right.
Yeah,
I think so as well.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
That's it. Yeah, for me, I'm
Sounds
Yeah.
I'm
good.
good.
All
Yeah.
right then. Thank you very much, and Fazia, definitely we deeply
Thank,
appreciate you
thank you
Yes.
very much. Thank you
having
for
Yes.
having
you.
me. I was
I know
happy
we
to come
kept you
back.
at length, but I guess you're making up for lost time.
You're past my bedtime now.
Yeah, yeah,
Past your
It's
yeah.
bed.
11. It's 11:30 where I am.
Yeah, and Gary, she was worried about she will have to do the show tonight.
Oh my God, no way. Thank God I didn't have to.
Well, we
No
we all
problem.
we all put in our part,
You guys
right?
took over. That's good.
Yeah, well, we put in our part, but
We're putting
your
our parts. Yeah.
Yeah, but
the
going forward,
examples you
we
gave.
want to do,
Yeah,
stick on and I mean, we will break up the categories of things, but definitely we're going to keep a show for medical,
Healthcare
issues,
focus. Yeah. Yeah.
and you can, Dr. Ramo, Dr. Parum can update us on what's the latest taking
Mhm.
place. How do we deal with certain things? Certain recommendations. We raise the issues here. I mean, as much as possible. And Doc, as soon as you can get some people on board with this Jamaica issue, I mean, I'm ready to go live with them.
yeah. Well,
You know.
quite a lot of the people right now are more on the ground,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
I mean, they
making
don't have to be
yeah,
like they don't have to be like us. They give us 5 minutes at a time. Just give us a quick rundown, or even they could send you a pre-tape video. Also, that will be help too. Also,
sure. All right, good.
anything. All right, good night, everybody.
Take
Thank
Okay.
care.
Good
Good
you.
night
night.
and
Bye
thank you
bye.
guys. Good night.
All right then.
Bye bye.
Dr. Parum, my friend, I will see you soon.